Welcome to Ride Rehab. I'm Tyler Mann.
And I'm Thomas Kiernan.
And I'm Nathan Hartman.
And today we're recording this episode from exactly 4 inches underneath the World Showcase Lagoon. We call that the loophole depth, where nobody can stop us. Anyways, we have someone joining us today. Nathan, do you want to talk about a bit about what you do with WDWNT?
Sure. Thanks, guys, for inviting me on. I am a correspondent for the WDWNT podcast, as well as a Central Floridian. So now and then I hang out at the parks and consume vast quantities of Dole Whip, and I'm always available to help with the WDWNT website and podcast and just anything else they need. So I'm happy to be aboard with you guys. And my shoes are a little soggy down here in the 4-inch depth.
There's a leak in the bunker, basically.
Just a little bit. It's concerning. But I feel like we'll be okay. I think this is considered international waters, like we talked about when deciding where to have this. So, only the United Nations can strip us from this area. So that's good.
Right. And it's good because now we have this infinite money that we can use to fix World Showcase or update and do whatever we want to it, basically.
It is strange they put so much money down here, but I'll take it.
So when we last left off, we were at the Imagination Pavilion, and now we're moving on to World Showcase to finish up our Round the World in 40 Minutes tour.
So we're going to start as if we just walked down the promenade into World Showcase, and we're going to go counterclockwise. So we're going to start at Port of Entry, which is that tiny little shop that's just in the front there, because clearly they need to sell you things as you're walking into a place where you primarily only get sold things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice shop. There's nothing wrong with it. I remember when I went in 2014, it was nothing but Duffy the Disney Bear. And this time it was nothing but Food and Wine Expo merchandise, which was good because there was a lot of Figment stuff there. But also it's not bad. It's just a store.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have liked something a little bit more themed to world cultures, so I don't have to go to every single country. Maybe I could just pick up something from all over World Showcase here, like maybe the best of featured merchandise.
You know, that does make a lot of sense because they expect you that if you were in Japan and there was some sort of toy you considered getting, but then you don't know, that you are going to get all the way to Spaceship Earth and go, you know what, I really want that toy. I think I'm going to go 2 more miles back to get, it seems like this area, I mean, it is literally the port of entry. So you're right. They should have these items that perhaps on second thought you do want, and you could pick up there. I think that's a great call.
It should look like an airport hangar, right? Because we're traveling around the world.
Agreed.
We should they used to have the little passport things. I guess that was more for KidCot fun stops, specifically for children to get stamped at each single location. But I like the idea of everyone getting a little passport or something, treating it wow, you're actually going to tour all around the world.
That's for when they add the Israeli pavilion, where they take your passport away and lock you in a cell for 4 years.
Oh, and no. Well, that's the quickest this episode. I mean, that's probably the quickest dark. What were we, 7 minutes in, something like that? Yeah. Well, yeah, I like the paper, like the passport idea. My only concern with that is that you're going to have Disney employees whose whole job is, the papers, please, every time you walk in, which is...
This is true.
Well, I'd
maybe
love
not.
A live-action Papers, Please video game.
Let's stay on topic.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. The boats are good. I don't think there's literally anything I would change about the boats.
Do you mean the ferries that take you from one end to the other?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are fine.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
little
pretty
old.
quick too.
Yeah.
They are a little.
And there's so many pretty.
And
there's so many pretty things. If you think about lakes and stuff Disney puts in them, whether it be Mark Twain or things of that nature, they're kind of dorky little boats. And they're sort of just the normal ones they use for stuff, and it should be a themed boat, something really cool.
It should just be a giant globe that everyone
everyone
has to
climbs
clutch
inside.
onto.
Get inside.
And it rolls across. Oh my god! They should have those like little bubble things they inflate the air of inside, and you can like walk across. Have you ever seen those?
Right. Well, let's
Those
hope you
would be
get
amazing.
Let's hope you get back to wherever you want to go before the fireworks start. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
They have like security cast members go around in other bubbles, and they have to like bump the visitors back to the shore.
Yeah.
If they don't go for the barge show, that'd be great.
I wouldn't mind like there's the boats, but I wouldn't mind something like canoes. Or just like a little bit more of like a personal sort of thing. Like, you know, in Disney Springs, they have those cars that drive into the water. Like something a little bit more fun, just add a little bit more dynamic to the lake. Because there's nothing much happening there during the day at all. It's not like it's not like the fountains that you'd see in the rest of Future World. It's just a pretty boring looking lake.
And they have that little island. You could put something on that little island.
Yeah, there's a few little islands.
Yeah. Which
I don't know if
are
they don't use
intentional.
those for firework launches,
I think
right?
so. Yeah, I think so. But still, they're there, and that's probably the concern, right? Is you don't want a bunch of people in canoes going up and messing with your firework displays, but or maybe you do.
This firework display is going to be guest made. That's right. You're all going to go out there and you're going to set up the fireworks yourself.
Build a firework.
That's right.
And you pay us.
That's right.
That sounds like Disney.
Anyways,
I
think we've talked about.
Yeah.
I think the consensus is that the boats are fine. They serve their purpose. Could be themed a little better. Maybe newer boats might be nice, but really there's no problem with them.
Yeah.
Truth.
Let's move along to our home and native land.
Ah, yes.
Canada.
Canada.
What can we say about the
There, I feel
Canada
like
Pavilion?
I can say that I don't remember much about it. I remember we saw the Martin Short movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Canada.
That's
Oh,
about
Canada.
it.
360
And then
movie.
that's right. And then there was a little bit of area around it, and it looks like the Parliament and
The Victoria Gardens.
the Victoria Gardens. Yeah, I don't know. It's Canada. We know it already, so
Right.
I feel like I don't really.
It's very pretty, though.
It is.
It
Pretty.
is very pretty, and and that's a pretty good representation of what Canada is. We have a lot of
We have a lot of
greenery.
yeah, and well, they also have the
Rocky Mountains.
Rocky Mountains and things like that. But it's because it's not new to me. I don't have much to say about
Right.
it, and I don't know. That's it, really.
Well, let's talk about the movie. The movie
Right.
was updated in. You're more of the Disney historian, Nathan. You could probably
Oh, well, that's so
tell us
kind.
about about the. You could probably tell us the dates of World Showcase. Now, it was 2007 that O Canada updated, right?
2007, you are correct. It was 2007. I mean, it's been open since 82, but 2007 was when they redid the movie, which is now,
Right.
11 years.
But it's weird because we watched that movie and I'm like, this was from like the 90s, right? Because Martin Short looks.
It's
They
old already.
must have slapped a ton of makeup on him.
It is bizarre the way they have somehow time traveled. Do you think it's possible that maybe they recorded things with Martin Short in the 90s, and then they edited the video and stuff, and then they just replaced it with more current things later, and all their stock footage shots of I don't know, Vancouver or something like that. They can just put those in anywhere because Vancouver's not going to be changing its skyline anytime soon. So that they can get away with having it in 2007.
Well, they had updated footage of, I'm not this smart. It's on here. But they had updated footage of some cities and some natural features, including the falls.
Oh, they do regularly update it then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at least they did in 2007. But you're right that it's like, let's think about 2000. And first of all, I need to say, if Martin's listening, Mr. Short, I read your biography or your autobiography. I enjoy you as a human being, but I'm going to rag on you for a little bit. So
All right.
we have at best, let's see, I'm looking for his filmography. 2007 Martin Short, he didn't make a movie in 2007. Here's what he did in between those two things. In 2006, it was The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause.
Oh, he played Jack Frost. didn't
Yes.
he?
Yes, he did.
And then 2008, he had some voice in the Spiderwick Chronicles. But we are certainly way past inner space level. We're way past jungle to jungle level Martin Short at this point.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, he was in that.
He
And
he
Tim
was
Allen
that.
was in it too.
Oh yeah. See, that's when you think it should be, right?
And it was
Because
a Disney movie.
that seems peak Martin Short working with Disney. So
Yes.
yeah. So it is a little weird that he's in that. Do you guys have thoughts about what you would like to see in that?
Oh yeah,
film?
I mean, I like the idea that it starts off the way like the 1980 version did, where it's like Canada, there's this lot of snow, and then he comes in, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" I really like that. That's fun. And even like the Canadian, I read about the Canadian government thought the film was very outdated and stereotypical, and they did as much as they can to get past that. The pavilion itself, all of Canada Pavilion, they're like, this is a little bit too stereotypical with the lumberjacks.
It's very
and
red plaid,
the
yeah.
totem poles. It's a little bit on the nose, and that really is how other people view Canadians half the time. In terms of what I'd put in that movie, I mean, just we talk about a lot of Epcot. The hosts of shows could be updated. Here's the other thing. I don't know really who to put as like a Canadian icon.
I have you.
Do
I
tell.
got it. Say bye-bye to Martin Short and say hello to Canada's own Ryan Reynolds.
That was what I was gonna say.
I was about to say Tyler's going to say that as well.
He is handsome. He is endearing. If he came out and went, "Hello and welcome to the Canada film," I'd be like, "Oh, hello, Ryan Reynolds." He's young. Has a long career of films ahead of him, and he was popular a long time ago. He's popular now. He's gonna be popular in the future. I can't really say the same about Martin Short, to be honest.
God bless
with
him.
all the weird TV shows that he's been on. Oh yeah, because Mulaney did really well for that one season it did. And I think he was on something else recently where it was pretty much the same character. But like I hate to say Martin Short is a little bit past his prime, and Ryan Reynolds is, I'd like to believe,
He's a piece of prime rib.
He's a piece of prime rib, which would go well with some mashed potatoes at Le Cellier. But he would be someone that other people could identify. And even if it's going to be a lot of local United States people, they at least know who Ryan Reynolds is.
Right.
We got Deadpool 2 coming out in May. We could shove him into the O Canada movie.
Yeah, he's part of the Disney family now.
And he's charismatic enough to hold it up. So,
But can I say? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we could pick the most charismatic Canadian of all, Keanu Reeves, because he hasn't aged at all,
No,
and he's still very successful. So.
That's true.
Here's Niagara Falls.
I mean, if it's
So big.
John Wick related, I'll take it. I don't know if John Wick's
Canada
Canadian.
Pavilion prevents John Wick, a tour of Vancouver.
John Wick goes to Toronto. I'm for this.
Let's talk about singers. Like a band would be a pretty good introduction to Canada. You could go on like specifically a musical tour through Canada.
Sure,
Right.
but I feel like that's I don't know. That's getting a little too far into niche.
Well, what I'm
stuff.
saying is Celine Dion.
Celine,
Yeah.
you want Celine Dion?
Guys,
She is a worldwide icon.
That's very
of
true.
Canada.
But you know what? I think I've changed my complete. I just thought this through. I've decided on something completely different. This must be hosted by the Trailer Park Boys. Just that's what it's got to be, to show the trueness of Canada. No, but I was thinking maybe Rush at least could show up.
Unpopular opinion. I have never watched Trailer Park Boys.
I haven't
I have
either.
no
It-
intention.
I
no-
am sad that I have, but I'm also happy that I have. If that makes any sense.
One of the things I would like to see at the O Canada Pavilion is when we went to we're going to go across the pond a little bit, and by across the pond I mean the literal Showcase Lagoon.
Okay.
To the American Adventure, where they had a little off to the side, a little museum that was. I assume the exhibits change regularly, but this one was particularly about African American contributions to American culture and society. I'd like to see something similar to that, a rotating sort of gallery that tells us a little bit more about the history of Canada, because from the O Canada video, all we really get are scenic vistas
Right.
of Canadian landscapes and cities and things like that. But we don't learn much about Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be nice to have a little more of a academic view towards it.
I think the same could be said for every pavilion.
I would agree with you most ways. Yes, I think perhaps the idea is that you're supposed to talk to your cast member and be like, "What's it actually like?" But
That's true.
That it's not.
Yeah, who
made
does that?
Clear and yeah, and
We did that. I actually rather enjoyed talking to a lot of the cast members there.
yeah. I mean, you're more socially confident than many of us. So
I do think that Circle Vision is as concept. I know that the Wonders of China, right, is getting this new seamless
yes.
360, or I'm sorry, not 360, Circle Vision. I've sort of already ruined it, but I think Circle Vision needs to go away. I think we need to go with 360 vision, an entire dome. A domed ride, not ride, but show. You do what you do right now. You stand in the middle, but it is the entire, with the LED technology now, there's no reason that it needs to stay in this sort of I don't even know, it's not panoramic because it's completely all the way around, but view, right? I mean, we have we have virtual reality at home. I mean, we can do 360 with our iPhones and YouTube. There's absolutely no reason we shouldn't see a 360 vision take over in these. If you're going to make us sit through a movie and expect people to come back to see it, you need to do more than just sort of, hey, turn around and see more, you know?
Yeah.
So that's, for me, my big contribution to Canada is the concept of the 360 vision. Well, all of World Showcase, I think.
And we already have, to be honest, we have that technology already in Toronto. It's called the Cinesphere. It was opened at Ontario Place, which is
that's
kind of
right.
like
That is correct.
a mini World's Fair-ish kind of location. There was a lot of exhibits and art galleries. It was on its own little island downtown, and the highlight of it was, and this is a great piece of Canadian history, it was
Toronto
the first
history.
IMAX theater in Canada, and I think maybe the entire world. And it is a sphere.
Cool.
It literally looks like Spaceship Earth. It's a geodesic sphere. It's not gigantic, but it holds an IMAX screen that fills, I think, pretty much 360 of the theater. Like, obviously, there's the audience, and then facing outwards, you have a dome above you, and that's what they project the films onto.
There you go.
And put that in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Oh, Canada should absolutely be a dome show. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Especially if you can build the new rig to make that like a technological achievement, why people should watch this. It's the first 360 dome film that Disney has produced.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Yeah. I think I think you got to do something unique. I don't like that there's 2 360 films and one sort of super wide, because France is not a 360.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. France is a regular sort of theater.
It's just a really huge anamorphic widescreen.
Like PhilharMagic.
Yeah.
Right. For some reason, though, when I think of World Showcase, I think that like everything has a huge screen. You know, like it just, for some reason, the impact of the maybe it's, I don't think it's lazy, because they do. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into making these beautiful films, but it is sort of like, hey, we don't have the space to do something else. Let's give you at least a movie and try to do something.
Well, let's say there was infinite space. I'd throw in a log ride if we're gonna go with the whole lumberjack thing.
Yeah.
And Canada has like the Great Lakes,
Yeah.
and they're pretty close to 2 oceans on the left and right side of our country.
Right.
I'd throw in a log ride. That'd be fun. It'd
my-
be fun to have like a little bit of water, obviously, other than the small waterfall they have there.
Right. But you now have direct competition with other Canadian themed water rides, with Dudley Do-Right just being in Universal next door.
Oh my God! How dare I? With Dudley Do-Right is such a
Canadian icon.
staple of Canada.
I mean,
He was
come on.
played by famous Canadian actor Brendan Fraser.
Yes.
No, he's not. That's the joke.
Also with Eric Idle in it, by the way.
Oh yeah, also with Eric Idle.
So I guess that counts. I mean, maybe if being in a Dudley Do-Right movie means you are officially Canadian, Eric Idle could just take over everything.
That's true.
Oh my God! I got it! a barrel ride. You get in a barrel
and then
they go down a river.
Yes.
And at the end, it ends with a drop.
There you go.
Like
I was gonna
Niagara
say,
Falls. That's a huge thing.
For some reason, my immediate thought was you get in a barrel and they push you over Niagara Falls. There's a helicopter that picks people up, takes them over to Niagara Falls in a few hours.
Why not?
I
Yeah.
think that would be fantastic. I mean, it would absolutely never happen, but infinite time, infinite money, ride Rehab. I would love a barrel ride that ends with you splashing out a tunnel into World Showcase Lagoon.
Right. Well, at the very least, right, this is a drop ride themed to look like a waterfall, and then the barrels that you sit in are, you sit in barrels, right? Like, if you want to make it very doable, which there's no reason we have to, but that is an option.
It would be like one of those rafting rides, kind of like Cali River Rapids.
Oh,
You would
okay.
just
Yeah, there
theme
you go.
The vehicle probably to be, unless it's like a one-person barrel, like the Hobbit.
I was gonna say, well, I was thinking almost like the Doom buggies from Haunted Mansion, except they have like a barrel shape to them, and then you sit in them, and then
So an Omnimover.
I think that's
that's the sort of vehicle design I would think that would fit on this hypothetical barrel over Niagara Falls ride.
I did think
go off of-
about water rides. My only concern is, does anyone really want to get wet at Epcot? And I feel like Epcot is the one place that nobody wants to get wet at.
You know what? I would actually agree with that. Maybe like a motion simulator then.
Maybe.
That would be cool.
Yeah, it's just Soarin', but you're in barrels.
Exactly.
And you just use the same footage too.
Barreling over Canada.
That's not bad.
So,
or even there's no screen. You're just in a completely pitch black barrel, and then they shake it around.
They just
and
put you
spray
on
some water at you.
Let's
Yeah,
bring
it's
back binaural audio rides.
one of those paint shakers. They just put you on a paint shaker.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like Mission Space, but you're in a barrel.
Yeah.
They just spin it around really fast.
I have only one other idea for Canada, and I think it solves a couple problems. We need to redo Journey to Imagination, but you have a Rick Moranis portrait that needs a home. I think we need to have, I know he's not dead, but I think a Rick Moranis memorial, some sort of like a Coco-esque, remember me for Rick Moranis at Canada would be a good call.
An ofrenda.
Yeah.
Former Canadian comedians who were in previous rides and have since been removed.
Yeah.
That was going to bring me to my next idea.
Oh my god.
If there's one thing Canada's known for, SCTV, Second City TV, TV show with John Candy, Rick Moranis, Catherine O'Hara, like all these famous Canadian actors who came out of there. I would theme, if we had to make it a movie still, I would make it an SCTV reunion movie.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Where they do like sketches about Canada, and it's like comedy bits. Obviously, some of them would be hit or miss, but that's what SCTV was like, and many sketch comedy shows were like. But bring back like Eugene Levy and Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis did actually a reunion show of his character from SCTV, Bob and Doug.
Yeah, Bob and Doug McKenzie.
The Canadian brothers. He went back to that character for one night only in Toronto. I didn't get to see it, but Rick Moranis says that he doesn't like doing movies anymore. Unless something really, really good comes along, which is why he didn't do Ghostbusters. Right. But I think he would absolutely love to do an SCTV thing, especially something there in Canada.
Here's the other thing about 360 vision that I think is important for all, and I bring this up now because I think it matters later when we talk about China as well. I'm a big proponent for Disney using randomization in everything. I think there should be 5 Canada movies and a digital display outside that changes and dissolves depending on the one they're showing in the next segment.
That'd be good.
Yeah, it's a cheap way to bring a repeat viewing to something. So have one with Ryan Reynolds, have one with SCTV. Change it up. And there's no reason you have to show the same film
every time.
Just
different hosts,
different themes.
That'd be good.
Like almost like heritage moments.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say they should have a TV somewhere in there that just plays heritage moments, just all of them on loop.
We invented Superman, damn it!
That's right.
Anyway, Le Cellier, I liked it there. The steak was good.
I thought we were going to go to the United Kingdom, but I've been directed to the World Showplace Events Pavilion.
Yeah.
Which I remember nothing about. So
that's because it wasn't open, even though it says it's been used for food and wine. History-wise, they built it for the Millennium Celebration, in which they had about 8 other countries not currently in World Showcase. They had their own little pavilions. This was during like 1999 to 2001 when it was the Millennium Celebration. And I don't know, why not use this place as your festival center where it's already in World Showcase?
Absolutely.
And it already is big enough to hold everything you need. Or tear it down and make room for another plot of land. That's the thing about World Showcase we're going to talk about. There's so many open plots of land.
There really is.
For expansions and other countries. Have you ever been in World Showcase Pavilion at any point?
It always, from a distance, it looks like a big place for a wedding. But, I mean, that's the thing. It's not that fancy. You know, it's... I think they used it for the New Year's. I was watching some vlogger footage of the New Year's Eve at Epcot, which looks bananas. And they had that open for that, I believe. So they do use it, but you're absolutely right. Move all the festival stuff to World Showcase. If you're going to put all the food and booze there, even though you act like Future World, you know, has some sort of food and booze, it's really World Showcase. So, you know, center it in there, or get rid of it as you're accurate and use the land. So,
or build a permanent festival center right there.
Yeah, make it pretty.
They already have extra land around. We're looking at like Google Maps, and you can easily go and see the satellite images. There's a lot of room around it, and it's shaped in such a weird way. It's like a macaroni little.
Yeah, it's like a crescent moon.
It's so bizarre. Anyways, and we'll talk about this when we go into the next pavilion, but there's space to expand United Kingdom even as well. And we should probably just move over to the UK, right?
Yeah, I think a place that is basically a stage for putting other things up, there's not much to say about except maybe utilize it better, Disney.
Yeah.
So okay, we'll move on to the United Kingdom.
Store.
It's
restaurant,
a store.
No attraction.
Was there a restaurant? I don't even remember the restaurant.
Rose and Crown, but we didn't eat there.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, there's really not much there except for the restaurant and the Alice.
There is the stage in the back, the hedge maze area.
Oh, that's right.
They need
you
to
are correct.
blow that out because it is a waste of space.
There's not much. I don't remember much about it felt a lot smaller than some of the other pavilions. Well, unfortunately, I think we're probably the farthest away from my favorite pavilions, but or the ones I remember the best at least.
Right.
But the UK, it looked nice.
I don't remember the theming being that impactful when I was there.
No, I also don't remember
it's
that. It's
small town village opposed to like London. So
yes,
it's
that might be the primary factor. Oh, I was gonna say because when you think of the UK, you probably think of London,
right?
But if they're going for English countryside, that's a bit of a different beast.
Well, it looks like Hot Fuzz. Did you ever see the movie Hot Fuzz? It looks like
Hot Fuzz.
I was gonna say
it looks like the town from Hot Fuzz.
Quaint little village.
Yeah.
Yes.
In which case, what would you put there? Like, I mean, you could easily insert anything there. You could put in an Alice in Wonderland ride. You could put in a Peter Pan ride. There's a lot of UK Disney properties that you could easily shoehorn an IP into. Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm kidding.
Well, I was going to say, was there any sort of museum there?
No. There's nothing.
No, there was just a shop that had Doctor Who and Beatles, and that was pretty much it.
And I guess that's another thing. This is yet another thing, and maybe a lot of pavilions could use this. Is just a sort of museum. I can't word it any better way because I know when someone utters the word museum, they think, oh, but kids are going to be so bored there. But
how about a Winnie the Pooh art gallery?
I don't see why
not.
Well,
they have that Winnie the Pooh. So this is an interesting fact about the United Kingdom. They had this Winnie the Pooh meet and greet, and you would go through the back, and then and you can see it if you're in the gift shop if you look through a door. And it was Christopher Robin's room. And then they stopped doing that meet and greet. They had like cutbacks, but they left the room exactly the way it was. So if you look in this window now, it's just it's just Christopher Robin's bedroom, and it's really pretty. But you make this good point. It's like that's the only sort of nod to Winnie the Pooh, and it's not really a nod.
I want a Monty Python museum.
Monty Python.
Yeah.
I was going to say just a little more interactivity in the UK pavilion. I think.
Well, they had would greatly improve. Yeah, they had a Mary Poppins carousel they had proposed.
Oh, okay.
Why not?
I think-
why not? That would be such a simple thing to
Put it in
put
there.
in. I can only imagine a carousel.
My only other thought was I thought they should do they should have live entertainment, and they have that show in the back with like fake Beatles covers or whatever. But I'm talking like chimney sweeps on top of the roofs entertainment.
Oh, that would be
Great.
Yeah, and like zip lining across and things like that.
that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so that was my
That's
big
the
idea.
thing that was the thing I always thought about when I was thinking about Epcot is there seems to be a tiny lack of this kinetic energy that other parks typically have. Like Hollywood Studios, you have the Streetmosphere performers, you have all the stormtroopers coming out right now and doing the marches, you have the mobile stage being moved. I mean, Epcot should really have like performers coming out once an hour to do something like what you have at I think it's the China Pavilion. Like and same thing with the Japan Pavilion, Italy. They have all these like little mini shows that happen. The Canada Pavilion used to have the Lumberjack show, which got cut, and then they had Off Kilter, which also got cut, and now where that stage is just a blank patch of grass. UK has that, but it's all the way in the back of the pavilion. There should be something up high, something people can look up. Like what you just said was perfect, I think. Having just chimney sweeps come out and do a dance on the roofs or something like that.
Yeah, I think that you're right about that kinetic energy. And now, they're doing so I heard something about Star Wars Land having some sort of roof fights and different stuff. So if they're already training for this sort of stuff, give me some step in time.
I agree.
All right. Ned Kingdom needs a bit more energy to it. Let's move on.
Well, we got the International Gateway, which we didn't really go in and out of because that's where the other hotels
okay,
come
gotcha.
from. And that's where the new Skyliner station is going to be.
I have nothing to say about that. Then.
There's nothing to
If
say
we didn't
about
even
that.
look at
It's an additional park entrance. My only thing is that you have to be staying at those hotels right next door just to be able to walk into Epcot at that time.
Yeah.
Or I guess the Skyliners, they're going to connect, 4 other hotels at that point?
Okay. So let's cross this bridge, which represents us crossing the English Channel, over to the France Pavilion. Basically, the France Pavilion has their movie, and I think the theming looks all right. Once you get a little more in there, it feels a little more immersive.
There's a giant perfume store.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
That kind of feels like France.
I guess
walking into that perfume store and it being like an overpowering smell that some people in our party couldn't even go in there because of. But I don't know. I feel like this is going to be really good once it's updated with Ratatouille.
Yeah. I would agree with you.
The fact that they're using the expansion pad next door to build that awesome trackless ride. I mean, I can't say anything negative about that. That ride looks awesome. It's going to bring a new family-themed ride to Epcot, which is great, especially since, like, energy is turning into a roller coaster that maybe little kids can't go on. This is going to be something little kids can go on. And Ratatouille, I think, is one of those perfect examples of IPs that, if brought into Epcot, works perfectly.
Yeah.
As opposed to the shoehorned...
As opposed to the shoehorned IPs,
yes.
which are our favorite.
Yes.
And I want them to bring back. I don't know if you knew this. For a while there, they had a Remy animatronic underneath, like that was on a cart.
Yeah, it comes out in the restaurant.
I was gonna say I didn't know that, but
yeah, and it was just this little dude. But bring that back and keep it because I guess it is like a staple in one of the parks elsewhere, or maybe probably Disneyland Paris. But they only brought it for a while to that one. But now that the Ratatouille is going to have its own ride, you got to bring that and keep it. So I love France. I don't know, it's almost perfect. It's just such a nice atmosphere and it feels great. My only concern is I don't know how they're going to make the Eiffel Tower look like the Eiffel Tower once you go see from the back. Because if you look at the Google Maps or the Google Earth, basically. Well, yeah, I mean, it's literally just cut and sitting on the roof. And I don't think it's going to look the same perspective-wise from the side. So I don't know what they're going to do with that.
It's going to be like a miniature then, right? Like it would have to be three-dimensional.
I was going to say, presumably it will have to transform into a three-dimensional forced perspective type ordeal.
Yeah, at some point we're going to see, they're going to be like, we're taking down the Eiffel Tower. Unless they build the new one first and then they transfer it in one night, which would be awesome. But I think once they have that new promenade that sort of goes around the outside of it, and then you have that new area in the back, which is probably going to have another restaurant or maybe like a quick service window, I think that's going to be way better. I mean, I can't really say anything that I would change, like, or update. Like, I think well, let's talk about the movie. It starts off in this tiny, like, full screen, and then it expands, and it's widescreen, and then it expands again, and it's 3 screens wide, like PhilharMagic, which I thought was fun. I'd never watched it online before. I watched it recently when we went, and I'm like, oh, that's fun. I like that. The movie's a little bit slow.
It's pretty slow, but I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it. I guess I learned things about France.
It's pretty cherished. Of all the films in Epcot, I feel like people hold that film up as, and I think it's a very good for those who don't know, I'm a film professor, and so from that perspective, I find it very good. It really draws you in, and it uses the music well. At the same time, with digital and all of that, I think it's probably time for something new. Okay. And I don't like saying that. But again, remember, my thing is you can have more than one movie, right?
This is true, yes.
I would love to see a film about French cinema. There's so much that the initial sort of birth of cinema all sort of stems from multiple countries, but France in particular.
Yeah.
With the Lumiere brothers and Méliès and his trip to the moon and all of that stuff. And I just think that would be really something along those lines would be fun. I feel like they could take something from. What was was it Discovery Land? I can't remember what it was in Disneyland Paris, when they sort of themed things like
Jules Verne.
Yeah,
that's
stuff.
Discovery Land, or basically the Tomorrowland that's in Paris.
Correct. And use some of that French. I mean, Epcot's already loved him. R.I.P. Horizons, in the sense of showing off. Well, and then Jules Verne was in Timekeeper as well. So. There's a lot they could do.
Well, you know what
with
is
that theater.
Currently in France is Cinemagique, which is soon to be our Hollywood Studios park. I mean, that's not really French cinema, but you know who's in it?
Right.
Martin Short.
Is he really?
Yes, he is. It starts off with someone in the audience answering their phone, and this film that appears on the screen. The silent characters in the movie look down at the person in the audience, and then Alan Cumming is this wizard who like zaps him, and then they disappear from on stage and appear in the movie, and it's Martin Short. And then he's stuck in all these movies, and he has to run from movie to movie.
I've never seen this.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's closing March 2017, so it already closed.
About right. I think it's already down for refurbishment now, but it's going to be something else. But it's a thing about film, but it's not specifically about French cinema. But there's some pretty good effects in there. Like at one point, they have to get out of the movie screen, so this knight in the film throws a sword towards the screen. Then the screen rips in half, and a sword like sticks out of the stage, like it got thrown through the screen, and it's an awesome effect. Cool. And then you see like the character walk out of the middle of the screen, and they're all silhouetted against the projector. Like it's some pretty cool stuff. I would put that with with your idea of French cinema, like merging those together. I mean, I think why it's so cherished now, the way you said it was like cherished film, is because it doesn't try to be funny. It doesn't try to be put in this time period. Let's compare it to the Canada film. The Canada film is like, I'm Martin Short, and look how funny I am. That was a decent impression.
That wasn't too bad.
And this one, it's just pretty straightforward. This is France. Here's the Eiffel Tower.
I mean, it's almost stereotypical.
Almost.
Like, it's it's the sort of almost, it's not black and white, but it feels like it's already in black and white.
Yes, I agree. Like it's supposed to be like an art house film where it's
that movie in a chick flick somebody would make their boyfriend go see, and they're crying, and the boyfriend's like, I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like that's, yeah.
If I could say one last thing for this,
yes,
I would love there to be a stage show about cooking. But I'd want it to be like a comedy stage show. Like, you know those improv games where someone is someone else's arms?
Tastes Dangerous.
Exactly.
That's a word. With Drew Carey.
Drew Carey in Tastes Dangerous. I want there to be a kitchen, and like kind of like how The Play Goes Wrong. I want something like The Play Goes Wrong, but with like a kitchen themed show. And at the end of it, just the entire kitchen explodes, stuff's on fire, food is thrown everywhere, someone gets a pie in the face. But during that, teach people about food and teach people France cuisine, bring people on stage and have them make stuff. I don't know, that'd be a fun show.
Yeah,
and
that would be.
You could actually have some level of comedy, make it more of like a kinetic show. I keep saying kinetic just because a lot of this is, let's grab wine and sit and drink, and that's pretty much what World Showcase is. I think that Ratatouille ride's going to bring a great kinetic energy to that pavilion, and specifically the park. So I think having a stage show about cooking would be fantastic.
Now, actually, I'm excited because Morocco was actually one of my favorite pavilions. And that's because when I went into Morocco, there were brief moments where as I walked through, I was like, this might actually be what Morocco looks like. I kind of feel like I'm somewhere else and not in the swamps of Florida. And so that's what I really liked about Morocco. And I think Morocco did have a museum.
It does.
I don't know much else. We saw the restaurant in the back, and how doesn't like the pathway like curve around and go nowhere? Like
it goes back into one of the shops.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, it goes back in one of the shops, yeah.
I'm sorry. Before we continue, I just want to make this clear because I wanted to talk about it earlier. Yes, we know you can see Tower of Terror over the Morocco Pavilion. And yes, we know that's why it looks like that. Okay. Just wanted to get that out of the way.
We've seen that on so many like top 10 things you didn't know about Epcot.
Yeah.
Did you know that there's tunnels under the Magic Kingdom? Yeah, we knew that because that's like Disney says that all the time.
To be fair, those videos weren't made for people like us.
That's true.
Right.
But I thoroughly enjoyed Morocco just because of the immersive nature of it. I learned one thing, was that Morocco's second language is French and not Spanish, like I thought it was.
I agree. Morocco was the most immersive one. Like, the streets were very tight together.
Yes.
And it was very tall. And I remember when I was looking up, I was like, I don't know that I'm in Epcot while I'm walking through these streets. And the shops with all the beautiful, like, the clothing and just the fabrics, I was like, this feels like a Moroccan village.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, I think maybe the height is part of the benefit for it because it blocks off all the surrounding areas where a lot of other places don't have such unique architecture to allow for that effect.
Yeah, I completely agree. Morocco is super immersive, but and here's the interesting thing about Morocco: it's the only one paid for by its country. So they had a lot of say. Why you have a museum in there, my guess is because Morocco wanted it. My guess is all that stuff is owned by some prince, and is on loan to Epcot.
Yeah.
But I think I can use Morocco, and I want to be the first to say that I don't fully know a lot about its source material.
Same.
So if I'm completely off by suggesting this, it should be connected to Morocco. I apologize in my ignorance. But I have always 100% always wanted an Aladdin dark ride. Give it to me and put it in Morocco.
Oh, no, you were right. Aladdin and Jasmine do have a meet and greet there, so it would be appropriate.
Right. I was going to say
I guess they already have Jasmine. You're right.
Yes.
So it should be fine.
I was going to say Morocco's a bit of a weird European country in that you wouldn't recognize it as a European country.
Well, but Aladdin's based on a Middle Eastern folktale, so I guess it's Middle Eastern, I would assume. Morocco's considered that.
Oh yes, well yes, Morocco is, although it's part of Spain, it's on the coast of Africa. It's nowhere near the Middle East, but
right.
You can get away with that because there's a lot of Middle East influence in Morocco. I believe the predominant religion there is Islam, and so that's probably the connecting factor as to the aesthetic and the association of Aladdin.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. Don't tweet me, anyone.
No, yes.
Disagrees.
A dark ride would be good. I would agree that there should be a bigger Aladdin presence in the parks in general, especially with the new movie coming out. Obviously, you could tie something into it.
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah. The sexy new Aladdin movie.
But we already had virtual magic carpets in Disney Quest, albeit they were not very good. And
Right.
that same movie is on the DVD of Aladdin as well. But an Aladdin dark ride where you board like a little chariot or a magic carpet or maybe like an elephant that walks or something, and you go through the story of Aladdin, that would be fun.
Well,
Right. The entrance is the Cave of Wonders.
Oh, that would be awesome.
you know what? I was about to say what you do is you have Aladdin take us around Morocco, kind of like the Three Caballeros in Mexico, where you ride around on the magic carpet and Aladdin like shows you Morocco or something like that. But I think
He steals crap.
that's right. He steals. I think the Cave of Wonders mouth idea is just too good to not have.
That
And then
sticking out of a wall or just like in a sort of open desert-looking area at the back of the pavilion.
or it could be even an effect in the ride where the ride comes and they like project the mouth opening to as you're drawn in. That'd be really cool.
Here's an idea, and I actually want this to happen at Dinosaur anyway, because Indiana Jones is my favorite ride of all time. But if they're not going to give me Indiana Jones at all, let's take that whole concept and let's use that. So instead of a Jeep as the thing, it's a carpet somehow. I don't know how this works, but it's on that sort of
That's
it's on
pretty
that sort of thing, and then you make a temple, like you use all that stuff from Indiana Jones, but you retheme it with the lamp and all of that, and you just kind of do a rehash of Indiana Jones there. I don't really
Indiana
want
Jones
that,
could
but
work with an Aladdin Cave of Wonders ride.
Yeah.
maybe. The other option, of course, is now that a Great Movie Ride is closed, we could take the Casablanca figures and just put them somewhere in Morocco.
Oh yeah.
Does that take place in Morocco? I've never seen Casablanca.
Casablanca is a Moroccan.
Yes.
Put them on the roof. do a Casablanca show on the roof of Morocco.
The thing about Morocco is something that I've had difficulty with when thinking about World Showcase improvements, things of that nature, is I don't want to repeat anything that feels like Animal Kingdom already.
Yeah.
And Morocco doesn't. But that's sort of for me, an issue is like, well, if it's not covering countries or changing things, it's like, well, I don't want it to be too Animal Kingdom,
Yeah.
But I think Morocco is enough. It's not part of Asia. It's not part of Africa. So, I mean, it is in Africa, but not considered culturally, probably.
I think Aladdin would be the most appropriate thing, seeing as it's already there.
Yeah, that's the thing. At the very least, Disney can cover themselves by saying no one's had a problem with Aladdin being there yet that I know of. So
so we'll move on to Japan. I was not thoroughly impressed by the Japan pavilion.
Really?
No, I thought it looks nice, but walking through it, I was just kind of like, oh, all right. I don't know. There was just something it was missing, and I couldn't figure out what it was.
Isn't it fun how touchy it is to talk about Epcot today?
Yeah, it is. It really
it's
is.
So weird. I feel bad for Imagineers because it is difficult to sort of want to. Here's what an American, thinks should happen with your land. That's very ancient and imperialist of us all. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is our podcast. We're trying to have fun here. We say as we talk about latent xenophobia in a culture.
I think we're being more appropriate than we thought we were going to be, if anything. I think this is a little bit better than what people would expect us to talk about.
Maybe we're raising the intellectual bar just a little bit. But regardless, we have to acknowledge the fact that we're a bunch of white dudes talking about other cultures that we may or may not understand. The exception being Canada and United States. Yeah. And I guess to a lesser extent, when we get there, we'll get to Mexican culture and I don't know much about UK culture, even though that's my father's side of the family. But when we get to Mexican culture, I'll be able to talk with a little bit of authority on that.
Well, let me bring up what is in Imagineering books, because I have a ton of those. Mount Fuji roller coaster. This was something they planned. This got pretty far into concept art development, but I think they ended up not doing it because of the skyline. It would have had to have been way back behind the pavilion and behind even like the roads where currently like the buses for transportation go around. I would love a Mount Fuji roller coaster. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, but they made it. I mean, it's Expedition Everest.
I was about to
That's
say.
True, it is Everest.
I was going to say, the Mount Fuji roller coaster, I think, became Expedition Everest afterwards, if I recall correctly. I think I caught a snippet of Defunct Land, and that's how I got that. But anyways.
Shout out to The Purge.
I mean, what other ride would you add there except like Journey into Anime, the ride?
Journey into Anime, right?
Well, funny that you bring that up.
Oh well, do tell, Nathan. Do tell.
I've always loved when Disney has worked with Studio Ghibli.
Oh yeah.
And I want a My Neighbor Totoro ride. That's what I want.
I saw concept art for this somewhere. I don't recall where.
I think it was a fan. It was a fan thing.
That would be wonderful.
There it goes.
That would be a lovely little dark ride that I think represents a very good part of Japanese anime culture. And
Here you go. It was a Disney designer who did the ride that we're talking about. John Ramirez. Credit where credit is due. John Ramirez.
My Neighbor Totoro ride, or even just a combination of all the more whimsical Studio Ghibli films in a sort of long dark ride. I think that would be great. Nice and soothing, and I don't know, mildly educational.
Give me some of that cat bus.
That's right, yeah. That could be the ride vehicle, a cat bus.
And then you have a Totoro meet and greet.
That would be fun. Ooh,
Yeah.
that'd be very fun.
I like this idea.
Adam Savage recently did a Totoro costume for Comic-Con. And if you watch his video, it's very possible to have a decent Totoro outfit that's sort of movable and holds an umbrella and whatnot. So it's very possible.
I like this
That'd
idea
be
very
cute.
much. Here's the thing. Resident crabby old man Hayao Miyazaki might not allow that sort of thing to happen with his artworks because he's very, very serious about the art of animation. Not the resort, but the art form of animation. And it's entirely possible that there's some stipulation in a contract where he's like, you can't do this to any of my things because it hollows them out and makes them a corporate product.
Wasn't Totoro in Toy Story 3? Bonnie had a toy of him because
Yes,
John Lasseter
that's accurate.
and Hayao Miyazaki are best friends. Store-wise, I liked that they had Gundams and Dragon Ball Z stuff and Pokemon and the one place you could buy anything Kingdom Hearts themed.
I was gonna
for
say,
some reason.
Yeah.
Superstore is a little stereotypical. I mean, but that's... I mean, if you just had like regular stuff in there that Japanese people use, then it would just feel like a superstore. But that was fine. I don't know.
I like the quick service restaurant that's up on the hill with all the koi fish. I've eaten there multiple times, and that's very nice. They had sushi there. They had like little rice and chicken dishes. Those are good. You ended up buying a drink from that stall.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Stall.
Yes.
And those drinks are good too. Like all the food stuff there is pretty solid, I think.
Right. And you know that Disney's already created Kingdom Hearts costumes, right?
Yep.
Like they have Goofy and Donald,
I don't know why they don't
all that.
Like,
just bring those things
is
out.
that really the place to put a Kingdom Hearts ride if there was going to be one?
I mean, Kingdom Hearts is Disney. Like, that's the thing. It can't really make a ride out of everything that's already Disney, sorta.
Yeah, but characters like
but
Sora,
you can use
Riku,
it.
Kairi, you can put them in that pavilion. I mean, you could make a ride just off of them fighting Heartless or something. Like, I don't get why Disney doesn't want to keep using it or putting it anywhere in the parks. Like, I guess if anywhere you're gonna have a character like Sora, it would have to be a meet and greet in the Japan pavilion, right?
Well,
Right.
I was going to say it's entirely possible that they can't find a place where they think it would fit properly.
Can I suggest a complete Japan redesign?
Sure.
I think in the daytime it should have this sort of nature feel, like it sort of does now, that sort of classic vibe. But I don't know how they do this. But at night, I want that to turn into Tokyo Neon.
That would be cool.
At least maybe have some like another area that's Tokyo Neon.
Yes.
Well, do it like
because that's-
Mexico. It would be indoors. That way you could be neon all the time.
Yeah.
That would be
Yes.
cool. I would love that.
If we were gonna rehab this building, or rehab the entire pavilion, I think a dark Tokyo neon area would be really cool to see in that back part of the pavilion once you walk through like that main gate.
I was
Yes.
going to say, give it lots of narrow streets to make it feel like a city. The Mexico Pavilion does do that very well. You are correct.
Right. Guys, I have something that I maybe I'm wrong here, but nope, I'm not. Somehow I am literally a pass holder and I didn't even know this gallery existed. I don't know how.
Well then.
It's not, apparently it's not. Here's my problem with Japan and a couple of the other ones. They go really deep and you sort of get lost into which doors you're going to go in for restaurants and which doors you're going to get in for stores. Do you know what I mean? Like some things are really well labeled and other things are more like,
oh yeah, this
walk in
gallery
and
is
see.
not open. You have to go to the back part of that sort of kimono store, and then when you exit out there, to the right is like a one glass door leading into and out of this area.
I was gonna say it's near the entrance with the giant arches. When we went into that gallery, I think there were maybe 4 other people in there. It was not being advertised in any grand way.
Yeah, so that's a problem.
I think we were in there for like maybe 2 minutes, and then I'm like, I don't get what I'm looking at. Let's just leave.
Yes.
So at least I'm not missing something huge here.
No, not really.
Now I'm so concerned. I'm like, are there rides I don't know about? Like, what's happening with my life?
So, the American Adventure, the what I'm going to call the centerpiece of Epcot, just because of its positioning. I don't have much to say about this. I thought it looked good. I think we actually are saying that.
It's in the middle because Disney was trying to say America is presenting this world showcase to everybody. So that's why America is directly in the middle.
Okay.
Which is why to the right side is Canada and to the left side is Mexico. Like it looks sort of appropriate when you're first walking.
I get what you're saying. We didn't see the American. What's the?
Okay, so we didn't see the American Adventure. But
That's
here's what happened. We did the tour of Backstage Magic, which is amazing, and I highly recommend anybody who likes seeing behind the scenes stuff, they definitely check it out, because you get to walk into the backstage area, or sort of the underground area where all the animatronic stages are currently residing before they get lifted up to the stage position that you actually see. So we got to tour through the building. We got to see like the empty theater, and then we actually got to go below the stage and see the animatronics. But when it came time to actually watching the show, I'm like, now that we've seen how it's done, we should go watch it. And then we waited in the lobby, and Voices of Liberty performed, and then they said, the show will begin in half an hour. And we went, okay, I'm not sitting here another 30 minutes.
No. I believe it was, are you ready to see this half an hour long show?
Oh,
and we said, no, let's move on.
We don't want to watch a half-hour stage version of American history. I think it's pretty much so we ended up not seeing it. But well, I mean,
at least watch it online, because it is pretty good.
I think I've heard the whole soundtrack.
It's technically very good. Let me put it like that. Like, it's got lots of robots and it does cool things. Okay, yeah. I have issues with the story, but yeah, it's interesting.
I was gonna say what. Part of the backstage pass was they really sort of emphasized, or the backstage, what was it? Backstage magic. Part of the backstage magic was that they showed us robots and they had their faces removed. It was
they had like a demo version.
Yes, sorry, they
not currently on the ride.
I was gonna say they didn't go up to like Mark Twain and rip his face off to show us, hey, this is how it works. No, they had demo versions, and so there was a real appreciation for the technology that we gained from just being explained how complex and interesting it is, and those giant computers back there.
Yeah, they basically, that show hasn't updated their technology since it basically started. Like, those are so old computers that are currently running all of the animatronics movements and the voice and syncing everything up. And they sort of walked you through it, which was really cool. It was so interesting. Yeah. And that building is so much bigger than we think. I'm sure people have seen videos about the forced perspective, that it looks like it's 3 stories, but it's really 5, and so on like that. But the architecture is cool. It's American colonialism, I think. And it definitely feels like America when you're walking up to it. It has that sort of Liberty Square kind of feel to it.
The Main Street USA type feel.
Yeah.
But that's turn of the century colonial America. That's just how it looks. Nathan, as the resident American, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Well, I have a little story to start. I went, and I sometimes one of our friends goes with us, and she's Puerto Rican, and we went and watched it, and she's dedicated. She loves Epcot. If I remember right, she got married at Epcot. So, I mean, really loves Epcot.
Right.
And she was like, yeah, I hadn't been on it in a while. And so I was like, let's go watch it. So I sort of conned my wife and her into seeing it because it is. I am the first to admit that it's really raw America.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, even more than Hall of Presidents. And so, I was like, well, I enjoy it for the technical aspect. So we watched it and I was like, so what did you think? And she sort of said, a lot of white people in this thing, isn't there? And I kind of had to be like, yeah, there kind of is, and we sort of had this conversation about like how American history is defined and mostly because of, the power structures that were sadly, happening at the time by sort of the white perspective. And the only sort of characters you get in this ride that have any sort of other perspective, you have, and I could be wrong, but I've seen it several times now. You have one woman in, I think it's Susan B. Anthony. And you have who has a main role. I mean, there's a few other ones, but not like when I'm saying characters, I mean like the legendary characters, like the ones representing actual human beings. Not like somebody working on I think it's a battleship in the 1940s, right? Who's a lady? Yeah. Kind of a Rosie the Riveter character. I'm sort of talking about the actual people, right? So you have like one woman who sort of represents equality, and you have a couple guys during the Depression, and then you have Frederick Douglass and sort of giving his talking about slavery, and you have Chief Joseph, who is my favorite character in the entire thing, because you really should watch it because Benjamin Franklin is sort of giving this sort of thing of like, yeah, America's great. Or maybe it's Mark Twain. I don't remember which one. Yeah, America's great. And then like the Chief Joseph statue just sort of, or animatronic pops up and it's like, wait a minute. Like, you guys are ruined like our entire existence, like,
yes,
it's not super hot, gang.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah, Chief Joseph makes a point. But anyway, America's really great.
Yes.
And for me, the problem with the show is we have broadened our horizons when it comes to equality in such a way, and the idea of getting past textbook sort of explanations for historical events, that we need to have a more sort of complex story in general about the American experience.
Makes sense.
And things like immigrants coming over in the Statue of Liberty and things like that. There's no scenes of that, right? And so for me, I think it really speaks for when it was made, which was 1982. And as much as I enjoy it, I think that it's time for a complete reassessment of sort of what is important when we think of history. And how can we hit things to show sort of the continuing melting pot that we've always been, opposed to sort of, I mean, like many podcasts, right? The American Adventure is hosted by two white dudes. So, it's sort of a problem in that sense. So yeah, I mean, it really tries hard, and the American Dream song is the cheesiest thing I think I've ever heard. And I just think that it needs not only an update because it stops at the 40s. It needs to add the 50s and the 60s because that's when a lot of this change sort of starts solidifying. But also just a total re-examination of what's going on. So the things I would add, if I had to add two characters, for the 50s, I would add Elvis and have him do a little hip shake. Because I think the representation of rock and roll is very American. And then in the 60s, I think it's time we finally have an MLK animatronic.
All right.
So those are my two sort of like additional audio animatronics I think that should be in the show. But overall, I think it needs a fresh look, a new story, and a reassessment of how we want to present our history.
Well, it's funny that you have said all that because you have very neatly encapsulated what I was going to say about it. That perhaps, and it appears to be they're leaning a little more that way, especially with that new display that they had that was about the history of African American culture in America. Is it on here? Is it just me? But that was the general impression that I got, was that it just sort of needed a bit of a cultural update. But yeah, I think that's really. I don't have anything else to say.
That's the thing. I would not even know the first thing to, like, what kind of ride or attraction or show would we even put in here that represents all of America, or even shoehorning an IP into it, like
right,
Home on the Range,
or just rip it all out and put America Sings. There you go.
Yeah, put America Sings, or great moments in history with the Muppets. I mean, that's like the closest thing, because they have like, hey, we're going to do great moments in history, but the American parts. And like Sam Eagle would be one of those better people to put in there. And I mean, America Sings does make sense if you're going to bring that back in some way. Right. Which we've
American Adventure
before.
is
Disney's never done, ever.
No, and American Adventure, the thing about it is, and look, it's a beautiful, and I want to, like, again, I always feel like when I'm podcasting, I concern myself that people who actually made things will hear me. And like, God bless you guys, because like 1982, they create this massive undertaking of a show, right? And 35 animatronics, all humans, right? Like, there's a lot going on here. It's a 28-minute show, and you don't want to like say that that's not good, but anything that was made in 1982 needs some sort of update. And I feel like, as of now, both the American themed shows, audio animatronic shows in Disney World, of course, Hall of Presidents in this one, just feel kind of like history class, right? And there's a sort of a very Walt Disney, like, I don't side with commies sort of, thing about it. So, and I feel like that's just not the vibrant sort of America that I know. It's all planned by Sam the Eagle, is what I'm saying. Like, it all feels like Sam the Eagle wrote it.
Yes. Yeah. And here is where we reach the middling gray area. We are all more familiar with these American cultures and North American cultures, but the thing is, you also have to think about the tourist base who knows nothing about these sort of things, and maybe Japanese tourists coming over are like, oh yeah, the Japan pavilion is very stereotypical and is not what my country is like, but the American pavilion, I guess that's what it's like. Or the idea is to give you an overview, so it's hard to find that nice middle gray ground that's edutainment. That's the word I'm looking for. That has just enough entertainment and educational value to work in Epcot. In summary, the American Adventure needs to be a little more even-handed about its portrayal about American events and things like that. So we're going to move on to Italy.
Italy! 3 restaurants that serve spaghetti and pizza. Pretty much, right? Like,
pretty much.
I don't remember much about this place. The one thing that I do remember is the shredded Poseidon statue.
Yeah, man, he's ripped.
Oh yeah. There was that Poseidon statue, and both of us went, damn.
My wife's gonna kill me for saying this, because she makes a joke in The Little Mermaid ride at Magic Kingdom, but we call Poseidon in our household Swole Grandpa.
Nice. Swole Grandpa.
He's very swole.
He is.
I think I have more of an architectural appreciation for this one, because
it's
reading
gorgeous.
American books, it's an exact mirror version of the actual plaza that exists in Italy. That building, that main tower that you have, it's all just like a condensed, flipped version. So it doesn't look exactly the same, but it's a little bit different enough. And it feels like an Italian plaza. It's a very nice vibe. I think the paving and the architecture works very well for trying to portray Italy.
Yes, it's not as immersive as my favorites, Morocco and Mexico, but it's fine. I can't think of a ride that they would put there.
Well,
or anything entertaining.
I brought this up on Google.
I looked up
a list of Disney movies that take place in Italy. Here we go. Cars 2, the Lizzie McGuire movie. That is the end of the list.
Lizzie McGuire it is. Hillary Duff. Get on the
That's it.
phone.
Perfect.
Get Hillary Duff, and she'll do a show every night. Actually, maybe.
Done and done. She probably would.
This is my dream. I don't remember the song from that movie.
I was gonna say you have a meet and greet for Hillary Duff, where you have cast members portray it, and then every top of the hour or so, you have a show that reenacts the movie, the Lizzie McGuire movie,
Where she
in
meets
Italy.
like her Italy lookalike, and
Sure.
then she gets to be on stage.
Sure, I know nothing about the
man.
Lizzie McGuire movie.
Oh, that's the plot, pretty
Oh,
much.
okay.
There's just another girl who looks like her in Italy, and it's like Prince and the Pauper. They swap places or something.
I guess what we're saying is that Italy looks solid, but doesn't really have anything to do unless you really like
There's no
Italian
real meat.
food.
There's no meat to it, even
Oh,
though there's
yeah.
a lot of pizza and meatballs. But there's no attraction. There's not even a movie
There's lots
in
of.
here.
I was gonna say there's lots of potatoes. There's no. Oh no, it's meat and
They sure
potatoes.
sell a lot of wine as well. I mean,
that's
one of
true,
their
yeah.
restaurants is called the Wine Cellar, isn't it?
Yeah, Tutto Gusto wine cellar.
Yeah, like there's what would you put there? I mean, other than a Cars ride would be fine. I mean, if Cars did have
God.
a bit in Italy, like a little mini Radiator Springs racer. I mean, don't put the whole Radiator Springs racers.
Well, I
That's
was
going to
gonna-
be
I
in
was gonna-
Hollywood.
well, you
Sorry,
could-
that's going to be in our cinematic
You
park
could almost have like a not the exact same as Test Track, but a similar sort of speed based ride where you climb into a car and then you race other cars.
You know how like
Feels like
World
Test
of
Track.
You know how World
Just
of
like,
you know how
damn it.
World of Motion used to be. You get in like a Corvette and then you drive around like
Mm-hmm.
the history of cars and stuff. Maybe have like a mini like convertible and you go in there and you go through the Italian countryside or something.
You know what they didn't
That'd be
have?
fun.
I don't know.
Do you know what they didn't have that they should have had? Was a little bit more about maybe an art gallery celebrating the Renaissance.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yes, there you go.
One of the most important historic movements in Western history. Maybe that should be represented in more than just architecture and a
Spaceship
swole
Earth.
Poseidon statue.
I did eat at one of the restaurants there. I remember it being so expensive though.
I believe it.
Like one plate of spaghetti was like $40, and I'm like, why? Because there's Italian
Yeah.
people that
believe
make
it.
food there. Every time I think of the Italian pavilion, I think of just that WDWNT ad where it's like almost everyone loves Italian food. And Chef Tony Ragu makes the best food. He is 1/4 Italian. Like, I obviously everyone from World Showcase is like, they are from their respective countries. I don't think we've talked about that here yet. Is that everyone who works at each location is from that country. And they bring them in on like
It's like a travel visa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
everyone who works there, you could have a full conversation about where they're from. You walk into the Italy pavilion and literally the first person you speak to, they'll be like, I'm from Napoli. Like, okay, what's it like living there? And they go, there's wine and cheese every day.
Wine and cheese and all these other things that you can buy right here.
Yeah, right.
Again, that's a level of interactivity that involves interacting with another human, which
Yeah.
many of us, especially these days, are bad at.
But let's say, you know what? Let's let Italy be the one without any attraction.
know what?
There needs
Yeah,
to be
sure.
a buffer, and that's totally fine. It's a foodie place, fooded up.
You know
I don't think that's a bad thing to have. Is to have a
No.
little bit of a break.
You know what? I agree with you.
It's just a little bit like on the smaller side compared to the otir pavilions. Like there's only a couple buildings and there's a lot of room in their plot
Yeah.
of land. Looking at it on like satellite. If I could just say one quick thing, there's gondolas that aren't even able to be used out front. I'd put that in the back. Make a little thing where someone tours you around
yeah.
and
You go
points
around.
out- yeah.
I was gonna say you make a tiny Venice that you go around.
Yeah.
That'd be fun. That'd
Just
be
like, you know,
nice.
just like, and it would be. I think it would
Very
be a
slow
lot
ride.
easier to make because you only need
As
one
long as it
small
floods.
canal.
Yeah, that's right. As long as over the course of 100 years or so, it begins to sink, just like the real Venice. Italy Pavilion, it's okay. Maybe a nice little Venice gondola ride through tiny Venice. But let's move on to Germany. I remember zero things about Germany, except that they had a band playing, and it was the most exciting music I heard all through the World Showcase. That was
Do
it.
you want to start this one off, Nathan?
Well, what I want to say first and foremost is they must keep the Werther's shop where I get my caramel corn. That's important to me now.
Oh God, that popcorn! Oh, that was
So good.
It smelled so good, but the line was so
so
big, and I'm
good.
like, I
Yeah.
want to eat all of this.
Yeah,
That was
it's so good. So I love the Germany Pavilion. I grew up in a small town in Indiana called Bern, Indiana. And it's a Swiss thing, but Swiss and Germany and polka, and it felt like it just had kind of was close to my heart. So lederhosen, I love that they sell lederhosen. I think that's very important. I've never seen anyone buy it, but I'm glad they sell it. The main thing for me about the Germany Pavilion is, you guys know about the Rhine River cruise, right?
Yes.
Have you heard about this?
Basically, they built the first half of it, right? They built the
doorway
area,
is there,
and they just covered it up with like fabric that looks temporary, but that was almost like it got so far. It was in pre-production, basically.
Yes.
They were almost ready to start building it. They even built the ride entryway. That's as far as I remember about it. I haven't really seen any concept art of what the rest of it was going to be, though.
Right. It's basically a cruise down the Rhine. It's a very old school Epcot in that sense, like very thinned out sort of. It's a general impression of the country opposed to anything else.
Yeah.
But I think, go ahead. You already have that there. You need to add the building. Just add the building.
Yeah.
This is the easiest one to add a ride to. Yeah. And I'm looking up Disney films. I don't know, in Germany. Snow White is Germany. Snow White is Germany.
Oh yeah,
Tangled
Snow White's
is Germany.
Scary Adventures. Shove that in there.
Yeah. Or do some Tangled is also Germany.
Tangled is also in Germany. A Tangled boat ride would be okay. Here's the thing: couldn't boat rides be in every single pavilion? Like they all work. A boat cruise, because almost everywhere here has some kind of river.
Right.
That
Snow White shows up in Germany Pavilion too. So they've already established that.
There's the meet and greet.
I think to go along with the store that sells pickles on a Christmas tree, we should have a pickle cruise, right?
Where you
That's Germany, right?
I don't know.
But right. How about if the Rhine River cruise, we go more general, okay? Mm-hmm. It's just Brothers Grimm. We don't have to deal in.
That's not bad.
That was what I was going to say as well. Fairy tales, like
you pull off a Maelstrom, kind of.
Yeah.
But with Brothers Grimm. Yeah.
I mean, Maelstrom's not there anyways, so may as well.
Let's wait to get to that because I have some thoughts.
So maybe that. Brothers Grimm themed Rhine River cruise.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's perfect because like the Black Forest it all originated in Germany, and I remember researching fairy tales. Almost every time a kid wanders into a forest, it's that one forest. That's where they all came from, and like. We already sort of have that at Disneyland. We have the fairy tale boat that sort of takes you into Monster's Mouth, and then you see all the castles of different Disney princes and princesses. That would be a perfect place to sort of bring that over to. Is like obviously a boat ride happens in like 90% of things you'd see at Epcot, but it would be an appropriate place to have that, a fairy tale cruise or a fairy tale boat ride.
I was going to say a fairy tale boat ride, and this is where you'll use the edgy new live action reimaginings of Disney to make it feel more appropriate.
Moving on, we have this giant corner area, which is
this place.
There's so many different names. It's called Refreshment Post. It's Outpost. It was
African
supposed to be Africa, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Originally,
was it ever? Alex Haley who wrote Roots, was helping figure this whole area out. And then it went nowhere.
Well then.
But it went to, we have an Africa pavilion. It's just an animal kingdom, right?
Yes.
Because it's just weird that they have a couple, like they have that wood carving area that we saw. There was those 2 or 3 sort of tents set up. And then there's water. There's a bunch of boxes, which, by the way, I read one online to try opening the boxes and you hear like animals screeching inside. That didn't even work. And it's just, it's such a waste of space.
It's garbage.
We have basically 2 huge plots of land expansions there.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that later, but like the Germany pavilion, they have a train taking up the next one, and it's like a miniature train just beside their own pavilion. But there's 2 giant plots of land that you could easily put something into. And if you're not going to do an African village or an African safari, like it doesn't have to be animals, but maybe a restaurant at least. At the very least.
Here's my problem with the African outpost in general terms, which is, well, first of all, it needs to be destroyed. It's so bad they don't even count it as a country on the map. Okay,
you know what? That's fair.
But my thing also, and this is something that when I was thinking about, okay, what are other countries I'd like to see? The problem stems from, okay, Africa is totally and wonderfully and beautifully covered in Africa in Animal Kingdom, right? But if you start thinking about it, you start to realize beyond Morocco, it's pretty European, the whole World Showcase. I mean, not European, Asia as well, but it's very specifically not Australia, which isn't easy, but we'll get to that, and not Africa.
Yes.
Like, very much not Africa. My biggest problem with it is I'm literally offended by it because you have these innovations, right? You show like the beautiful architecture of this and this. And then there is this thing about the African outpost where the whole concept gets more fleshed out, you know, in Animal Kingdom, this idea of like it's nature itself which makes Africa beautiful, right? And makes these countries beautiful. And I totally understand that and I love that, right? But in comparison, when you go from Italy or Germany, it's Italy, Germany, and then you go to the African outpost, it looks rinky-dink already. But it's also this idea of like, we have drums and huts and, you know, it just seems so out of place and backwards. And it's not even innovative in the sense that like Africa has a lot going for it and there's a lot of interesting things that happen there. And it sort of feels like, I don't know, what's Africa? Huts? Like it's just almost offensive.
I completely agree. You're right that everything is just so European or Northern American. There's not really a representation of Africa or anything on the far
South America,
Far East in general.
I was going to say, even we have Morocco, which is Middle East inspired, but there's no countries from the Middle East itself.
Yeah.
Well, the key is they're all developed countries, right? Like they're all already developed. I don't think any of them are third world countries in that sense.
No, absolutely not.
Right. And so that's sort of the issue when you have something like the African outpost.
Yes.
Because it's representing a long history of abuse of imperialism.
Yes.
And that's why it didn't get to do stuff, you know, in many ways. And so it almost feels like imperialism that it's even there, you know, because there's like a Coca-Cola thing and there's a bunch of. Have you been in that? Did you go in that gift shop? Because it's Lion King, the Lion Guard, and Indiana Jones stuff. That's all that's in there, really.
I think during the festival, they turned it into a festival shop.
You know what? I think you are correct.
It's on the map.
Right.
It says.
Well, here's the other thing,
Epcot
though.
Festival map, or sorry,
It
festival
also
shop.
right now the Festival of Arts is going on, and I've of course went to the Festival of Arts, and you know there's all these areas that have like here's paintings and all this stuff, right? In the African Pavilion, they have Tom's shoes and soap.
What? Tom's shoes?
Yeah, like Tom's, the shoes.
Yeah, there's a brand of shoes called Tom's, and every pair you buy, they will give a pair to impoverished children in Africa.
Right. So for me, okay, I see you've put all this wonderful, beautiful. They don't even have African artwork there, right? All it has is soap, which I don't know what the connotation there is, and shoes made so you can give them to poor children in Africa.
Yes.
That's rough, gang. Like, that's a rough set of, like, if that's all we're going to show, if that's how Disney sort of sees, like, oh, this is where we'll put stuff for the festival, it feels weird.
Yeah.
So here's my thought about African Outpost. You know what? I'm going to break trend. Okay.
Oh, God.
Maybe this is people are going to hate this. I promise. Okay. If you're going to do something African, right? Just do Wakanda.
From Marvel?
Oh, yeah, Black Panther.
I was going to say, I would keep that out of Epcot, because Epcot is designed to be based on real countries. And you could use real African countries.
Can we just go back 1 second? Because there's a Guardians of the Galaxy show that's going to be at the American Gardens Theater.
So nothing matters anymore is what I'm saying. Nothing matters, guys. You know, it's over. So
I guess if we
Walt is dead. Let's crap on his grave.
Sorry,
let's take a crappy thing and put in an IP'd crappy thing.
Yeah.
Wakanda would be the most appropriate of all places.
No,
if
absolutely
it's
not.
Marvel to shoehorn into Epcot anyways, like.
Well, if you're going to replace African, is what I'm saying. Like, if you're going to replace the African Outpost with something, do something that's cool and about Black culture and like represents it, like, you know, the amazing history of the people. The African area in Animal Kingdom has wonderful music and it's lively and beautiful. And like the outpost is garbage. And so if you're going to go IP everything and go crazy, and if I had to put Marvel in Epcot, that's, I guess, what I would do. Is what I'm saying.
Like Pandora, where it's supposed to be a representation of somewhere else. Like Pandora, they're like, this plant creates oxygen. Just like on Earth, this plant does this. But in this one, it's like, on Wakanda, we have this. And the equivalent of it in Africa would be this. Like, you'd have to teach it through the IP.
I was going to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
This can be a discussion for a later episode. We're going to imagine Epcot, and we're going to replace every country with fake countries. And this is going to be something for a later episode.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm trying so hard to find the words to say how much I hate the idea of putting Wakanda there. Because
no, it's bad.
It's bad.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. First of all, it's bad.
Yes. Okay, good. African Outpost needs a real African country. Why?
Yes.
You know what? Why not Egypt? Egypt has a large landmark that you can recreate, and it's fairly.
It's very Moroccan, though.
So here's the other.
That's the other
it feels
thing.
like Morocco.
Is Disney? So when they first started with Epcot, they went to the countries themselves, the government, for funding.
Yes.
Let's use the Canada Pavilion as an example. They went to the Canadian government, and they wanted a representation of both English and French. So Disney's idea was, let's just make a main street, and on the left side we'll have English shops, and on the right we'll have French shops. They were actually going to be the same shops, but one was going to be in English, one was going to be in French. And that was the idea, was because that's what the Canadian government wanted. If they were going to throw money at Disney to represent Canada, they wanted it to be the way they wanted it to look. And then when Disney came back and they showed their own ideas, they were like, this is too stereotypical, and that's pretty much what it looks like now. And I don't even know if they do the same kind of thing with the funding where they get it from a country. Obviously, with stuff like the China Pavilion, they need to have an agreement with the Chinese government to actually go there and film. Like, that is some serious diplomatic related stuff that we can't even fathom.
This is true, I guess.
The same thing is about Soarin'. A lot of those countries that they got to film in and fly a helicopter over, like they actually flew a helicopter with a giant camera rig a couple 10, 20 feet just above the Great Wall of China. That takes some serious agreements between the U.S. and Chinese governments.
Yeah.
Well, the new Soarin' is all computer generated.
Yeah,
and I think that's why.
That's why is computer generated, because they don't have to get permission for that. To do that. Specifically, the Taj Mahal, I remember being the worst one. Was completely animated because they did not get permission. But that would be such a huge thing to take out of that movie.
Yeah.
So with doing something with Africa or doing something with Egypt and even things in the Middle East is, first of all, it's already in the world that we live in right now is not the kind of place where you'd say, hey, give us money so we can portray your country in a theme park so we can make more money.
Did you hear that sound? That's me pulling on my collar.
You got some steam coming out of there.
Yeah.
Are they going to do it themselves and then have the risk of this country being like, you're not representing us properly? Or do they do whatever the country wants? And maybe it's bad because they don't have like an idea of what people at a theme park want to visit. You have to walk the line so much, and maybe that's why we don't have these new pavilions that they keep talking about, like Brazil and Spain and all these.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the politics. I mean, even just talking about it, right? But the politics of this whole stuff is so intricate and delicate. Not wanting to offend governments, wanting to bring people in. I think one thing they could do for the, if they already have for the pavilions that already have a Disney park in them. So France, Japan, Shanghai, let those pavilions be run by people who are original from those countries and are Imagineers in those other parks. Let them design those because they can represent, and then they can say, hey, we had our Disney people who live there come over here and design these. And I think that's a way of saying, like, you're open to that sort of stuff. But it is difficult. I would say that they're no longer trying to get, they are definitely trying to get money from countries to do it. But I also think that this whole Chapek style of stuff, on one hand, he loves getting money from other people because that means less money Disney has to spend. But at the same time, that means less control and less putting IPs in stuff, because let's not kid ourselves. Like, some countries are going to be like, I don't think so. Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's just when I think about Aladdin in Morocco. Like, I don't know if the Moroccan prince who literally paid for the whole thing is going to say yes to that,
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a delicate balance. But I think the more they can do, the more they sort of branch out and do stuff, my guess is the less they're going to concentrate on money coming in from the countries. I think it's the only way to do it. And I think what's replaced that has been these corporate entities that live in those countries. They sort of take up some of that slack, right?
Yeah. Let's move on to China. Sorry. We'll do the summary of the African outpost. We hate it. And
The China Pavilion.
the China Pavilion.
I have nothing bad to say about it. I think everything there pretty much is exactly the things I'd want out of a pavilion. That the quick service meal there was delicious. I had like chicken balls and rice. I loved it. That food is always good. That main, I don't even know what to describe it as, but that main building before you go into Reflections of China is such an architectural
Yeah.
And did you know, guys, if you stand in the exact middle and speak, you can, that's what everyone always says every time you go there. It's like that one fact. If you stand in the middle, you could like hear a conversation on the other side of the room, or if you yell, everyone can hear it everywhere because that's how echo works. Or
Acoustics,
acoustics.
And currently has a Shanghai Disney sort of display.
I loved that. I
did
that
too.
little
Yes.
sort of.
But it's
what can
very
you see in the future there?
Right, but it's also very not kosher to the whole concept of what is supposed to be World Showcase, in my opinion. Like it is.
Yeah.
It is sort of like, hey, remember that spot we had for like your beautiful like antiques, and there's sometimes where they thread things, and we'll get to Mexico later, but you can thread Coco into a display about like memorializing things. But that's just a blatant like, here's Shanghai Disney, and I have no problem with that because I love that. But I also understand that like, that space was probably meant for educational purposes.
Yes.
I mean, they kind of. At least I remember when we saw that exhibit, it said we had to make sure that everything transferred over into Chinese culture well, and they sort of gave examples of. So instead of having a main street, we did this. We made it the gardens, like because it's more appropriate for Chinese culture. Or they said like a lot of the rides, like here's what we did differently because the idea of adventure in China is a lot different than what we see in America. So their adventure land's a little bit different. This land's a little bit different as well. And I thought that was, at least if they had to shoehorn it into there in any case, that's the best way they did that. I liked seeing that exhibit because us, at least as huge Disney nerds, we like seeing those kinds of things where we get to see a model and we get to see how they make that world or how they make like somewhere else, another Disney world, appropriate for that culture.
Right.
I kind of like that exhibit, to be completely honest.
Oh yeah. No, I like it. I'm wary of it.
Yes. It almost feels like, hey, next time you're making a trip to China, why don't you add an extra $1,000 onto that vacation bill?
And gosh, I would in a heartbeat. Are you kidding? It's a gorgeous park.
It's true though. And here's the other thing is that other than that beautiful building that you go into before Reflections of China, I don't remember much about the pavilion. I
spent a lot of time in the shop there also because it was raining.
Yes.
We were indoors waiting for the rain to pass.
This was also true.
The shop is sort of the standout thing, like the amount of detail in that shop in general, like with all the kind of items they were selling. A lot of that stuff is really nice to shop through in general. And let's like talk about Reflections of China first. It's a good movie. I mean, the fact that they're updating it is great. The fact that a Circle Vision show is finally getting an update.
Right, they're doing seamless. See, I've already got it in your head. You know my idea is better.
Yeah. Adding a dome would be incredible. I think what else could you put in there? I mean, here's the thing. I don't like the meet and greet with Mulan.
I was about to very lightly touch on Mulan because I'm like, although that's a Disney property that exists in China, it does also it's one of those cases where it does feel a little regressive as far as things you could put in that pavilion.
Yeah. Well, maybe the new movie, right? The new movie's coming out.
Oh, that's true. They're also the new movie coming out.
Maybe they'll put a little preview thing in there at some point. Or you know what, an exhibit about that, like the movie and like how they made the costumes for that, like that would be a good place to replace that Shanghai exhibit.
What if it was Journey into China with Mushu?
I would hate that. I didn't like
Yeah, I know, it's
Mushu
garbage.
in the animation show that they had at Hollywood Studios. You watch the movie and you're like, oh, he's actually really annoying.
World Showcase needs its own dragon, people.
That's true. How to Train Your Mushu. I don't like the meet and greet with Mulan because I have nothing to talk to her about.
That sounds like your problem.
Yeah.
I guess that's fair. I could have asked her questions and stuff. Like, I mean, Star-Lord, and he's like, "What's up, man?" And I'm like, "Hey." And then he's like, "Here's Groot. You want to talk to him? Cool. You know what? Here's what I did in space." And here was the conversation I had with Mulan. "Oh, you look so strong and handsome."
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Yes, you should be in Shang's army. And I went, "All right." And that was the extent
Which is a
of it.
weird thing for Mulan to say. Like, she doesn't take no guff, or
Yeah.
she's not like looking for a husband.
What I'm saying is that I would rather the meet and greet for Mulan is I go there and then she shows up with a sword and kills me, and then instantly. You know what? Do they have a meet and greet where Mulan comes out in her armor?
No.
They should.
No, do that.
should.
Do that.
That because
Yes.
that in the movie that's
She's in that 90% of the movie.
exactly. I know it's the whole we want them to be princesses thing, but maybe a princess can be a woman in armor wielding a Chinese falchion.
Yeah. And you know why we know that? Mulan.
Exactly.
So do it.
Yeah.
Or Xeno Warrior Princess.
Right.
When are we gonna get
Phasma.
Xeno Warrior or Captain Phasma?
I like the acrobatic show they do outside of the China Pavilion. We didn't really get to see it.
I was gonna say I
because
don't
it
remember
was-
seeing that because it was raining.
It was raining up pretty much the whole time. But their show is great. It's very impressive what they're able to do.
Yeah, more of that.
Stacking 40 people on top of each other.
Sure.
Obviously, it's not 40. It's
Yeah.
an exaggeration. But that show is pretty cool. And once again, it adds that level of kinetic energy I like to see in Epcot, where you see them, like, they're pretty much right on the berm of where the main walkway is. It's not a show hidden in the back like the UK pavilion where you have to go all the way to the back part of the garden there to be able to see it at all. It's right in the front. You could stop by and take a peek if you were just walking by rather than feeling the need to go into a theater or go into a back area just to see it.
Norway. I'm just going to straight up stay it. I hate Frozen. I hate almost everything about it, and I hate that it is overtaking the Norway Pavilion. This is a case where it feels like the intellectual property is overtaking the culture that it is based upon as opposed to showcasing it. And of course, the Frozen Ever After ride is a prime example of that. Because I know the idea is here's Norwegian culture and here is how it inspired Frozen, but it feels more
no, I
like
get that.
here's Frozen and here's how Norwegian culture inspired it.
Let me say the good and the bad about the Frozen ride. So, the bad... Maelstrom, first of all, when I was a kid, Maelstrom scared the crap out of me. The fact that the boat went backwards and it's like back over the falls, that was terrifying to me. I
Right.
legitimately tried standing up in the ride and being like, no, because I was sitting right near the back and you see the boats. They covered up the hole where you normally see it, but the place where the boats stop and then change direction, you always saw the boat come just out of the building over this waterfall. That scared the crap out of me as a kid. But anyways. The fact that it's frozen now, the bad thing is it used to start with "You're not the first one to come this way, nor shall you be the last." That was a terrible accent. But then the Frozen ride is, "Hey, you're going to Elsa's castle." And I go, "Uh-huh." They go, "Have fun." And it's like there's no plot there. At least the
No.
Norway one takes you into the myth of Norway with troll monsters and creepy things on the moor. I loved that. That was cool.
Right.
That was a ride through a myth or a legend of this country. And that was the coolest thing because none of the other pavilions did anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Nor do they have an attraction really, but that was so awesome. If they made a China ride just about going through a dragon cave or something, that would be so cool. But this one is, "You're going to her castle." That's literally the dialogue. "You're going to Elsa's ice castle." And I go, "All right." And then
Here we go.
Now here's the good thing. I don't mind the song "Let It Go." Occasionally it'll pop into my head because it's a catchy song. And so when I went with my friend Scarlett and Tom refused to go on the ride, even though we went at a point when there was no lineup. Let me rewind and talk about that, because that ride always has like a 3-hour lineup.
Yeah, it really does.
When we went, it was broken down. And I said, how long has it been broken for? They say 2 hours. And I go, okay. And I said, guys, let's wait here because I think it'll open up in like 10 minutes if it's been down for 2 hours. So we started talking to a cast member, and they were asking us questions about Norway to show us hidden pins that they had, or mystery pins.
It wasn't questions about Norway. It was questions about Epcot.
Oh, okay. So that was still
they were not one of the Norway Pavilion people, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, you're right. I think they were one of the food booths because they were wearing the sort of like all country outfits.
I think you are
all the
correct.
flags
Yes.
on it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we started talking to them, and we started learning a bit about things we didn't know in World Showcase and other countries. And then I turned around, and people were walking in the line, and I went, Scarlett, now! And we started running, and I'm like, Tom, come on! And he's like, I'm not going. And I'm like, good, you stay here. And I threw the umbrella at him. Yeah. And then we went on the ride. We waited maybe 5 minutes, and we got to sit
That's awesome.
on the back seat of the boat. And on the ride, I'm like, okay, that these animatronics are at least really good.
Yes.
Like the Olaf one is on the same
really
kind of level
cool.
of Rocket Raccoon.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And Stitch, yeah. The fact that it's such a small animatronic and they pack a lot of like personality into it.
Yeah.
But then, and so we get to the part where Let It Go kicks in, and our whole boat is singing the song, and they're singing along, and that's lovely. The fact that they took something that was originally just dark and scary, and they brought a level of fun out of it, something that'll connect. Like kids nowadays will connect with Frozen, obviously, and so that's why they enjoy that ride. I think it's complete butchering of Norway's culture that we don't even, if they had kept the theming the same as Norway, like what their architecture and buildings look like, and then just made the ice castle its own thing, that would have been fine. Except this is entirely, we're in Arendelle, and it looks nothing like what Norway actually looks like.
Yeah, but Maelstrom is not a ride that was not completely messed with because of politics anyway. I mean, they had to add oil rigs and a polar bear at the end to make the country happy. I mean, it wasn't exactly like a perfect concept to start. I mean, I remember writing it and sort of being like, what the heck did I just go through? Like, I didn't really get, I mean, in the sense, like, that's sort of the purpose in some ways, like this mystery, and I didn't hate it, but I was just sort of like, I don't understand, what am I supposed to have experienced here? Especially because it ends with oil rigs.
Well, the post show, even afterwards, is the learning part, right? Because other than, instead of walking into a lineup and watching a movie and then going on the ride exits into a theater, which you can then just choose to walk directly through and not even watch the film. Have you ever watched the film?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I think I watched it once, and then me and my mom went, we're not watching that again if we go on it again.
Right. Let me say this about the Frozen ride. The best part about it, though, is it's queue, because it's really pretty.
Oh, yeah. The
gorgeous.
architecture is really good in the queue line, at least. And it still felt like Arendelle, but a lot of it was at least a little bit more grounded in that culture, I think. Like, obviously, the only stuff that we learn about Norway is the exterior buildings. I think there's a shop there. I don't even recall going and shopping there.
There's a shop there. Half of it's now Frozen stuff.
That was the reason why. I went in there, saw Frozen, and I went, I'm not looking in here because there's literally nothing I want to buy. Yeah. That's why I don't remember the shop at all. But then they have this sort of church temple thing up front, which has just the tiniest little museum of here's how Norway inspired Frozen. And that's probably the only educational bit about that attraction. Right. Or the pavilion as a whole. It's just that.
Well, they do have the pastry shop where I bought a lefse, and that was delicious.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that, no, there's not much else about Norwegian culture.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there needs to be a balance. I think it's imbalanced right now. I think getting a balance is the best call. I would not say go back to Maelstrom, because I'm fine with that there is stuff that doesn't hit me. This is why I went on an Aladdin ride, right? Because it means something to me when I was a kid.
Yeah, precisely.
Frozen, I mean, that place is full of kids every time I go on that ride. And there's no ride at Epcot that's full of kids except that one, really. And that's okay. It's okay. I'm willing to sacrifice an aspect of something I like, which is, sort of the purity of Norway as a showcase area, if that means they get to experience all of Epcot or all of the World Showcase.
Sure.
So it's a devil's bargain, I think, in general terms. But I agree, the balance is off.
So let's see if we can actually do what our podcast entails and fix this. I would say don't make it you're visiting Elsa's ice castle, or don't make it just that. Make it you are visiting them during a specific holiday or celebration in Norway. Or something that
Olaf's Frozen Adventure.
Yeah, well, as much as I hate to go to that,
you have to watch that before you go into the Mexican pavilion. If I remember correctly.
Exactly, you're right. You are correct.
Joke of the podcast.
There you go. But something more akin to that, because even that we didn't get much, but you get to see little hints of Norwegian culture and the way they interpret a celebration differently than us. And it doesn't have to be Christmas. It can be some other Norwegian festival.
The boat ride should go through Arendelle.
Sure.
Basically.
Sure.
And then we see a town, we see villages, we see shops, and then we see that, like, the snowy tundras of, like, the mountains or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
We need to find that balance.
If I really, really got what I wanted, right, which is would not be a Frozen ride at all, of course.
Yes.
But would just be Vikings of the Caribbean. I mean, basically.
Yeah.
I'd love a Vikings of the Caribbean ride.
Right. I mean, that's sort of what that would be the best, but you're not. The only problem with that is all of the raping and pillaging. So
this is true.
But that's sort of been covered by pirates, I suppose. I mean, that's the thing. It's like Vikings are just northern pirates. That's not necessarily culturally accurate, but,
they're pretty similar.
Right. What do you do ride-wise? But, that would be the grand plan if I was going to do something with Vikings.
All right.
I'd agree. Vikings would be the best thing to... If you're not going to have an IP, like if we're just completely gutting this ride, and what are we going to put in there instead? A Viking-themed boat ride? Or like...
something with adventure? Yeah.
Would be a good example is, the ride vehicles from Shanghai's Pirates, where it's like, it starts off as a regular boat, but it can turn and it can sort of go down an elevator kind of vehicle, and a little bit more of a water coaster than a boat ride. So you can have a little bit more of a thrill in there with some bumpiness. Like, from what I've seen with Viking stuff, they have giant boats that go through crazy waves. Like, maybe even just a boat simulator would be cool.
I'm also pretty sure that Norway gave us a lot of the water-based myths that we have, like about the Kraken and the Leviathan and so on and so forth. Sea creatures, sea monsters. So that would actually be cool with like a Viking boat ride where you encounter all these things.
Well, the way like Legend of Jack Sparrow had this big sort of wraparound screen, and we were kind of there, and it felt like you were on a pirate ship with Johnny Depp, like that kind of 360 feeling, but you're standing on a boat. They spray water at you and stuff like that.
I had a brief moment thinking about this Viking ride where you encounter a sea monster, and what it is, it's underwater animatronics are a lot of pains in the ass, but you have one, or maybe a projection or something, where it looks like a creature swims really near you and it's really big.
Under the boat.
Maybe under the boat, but it never breaks the water and you just see the outline of it, and it's scary and awesome.
I don't want a giant animatronic, like, sea beast coming up in front of you and roaring in your face. That'd be awesome. You
know what? That'd be great. The Norway Pavilion is a Viking adventure where you are attacked by a sea monster. I like this idea.
There you go.
I'd go on that.
If we had more time, we'd go more into that. But I think it's time to move on to our final pavilion, which is Mexico, which was my other favorite pavilion.
Take it away, Tom.
So the Mexico pavilion I love because, one, I have a Hispanic background on my mother's side of the family. Not Mexico, but El Salvador. The theming and the look of this pavilion, I think, is easily the best one out of all the other pavilions. The entrance being the I believe it's a Mayan temple, not an Aztec temple.
I think it's Aztec.
Aztec, one of the ancient Mexican indigenous cultures are represented there, and then you enter, and it's this lovely wide open area that just looks beautiful, is fairly interactive and gorgeous. I don't know. It was another one where I was like, I feel like this could be a Mexican street somewhere. and felt completely immersed in it.
The way that it's nighttime and we're in a busy marketplace. I think you're right. It does really feel like that, especially with all instead of having these open shops to the left and right, there's stalls and there's people with tables set up and they're making the things right there. And you can ask them about it. And
so I guess that's the big part of the Mexican pavilion is the ride with the three caballeros, which hopefully will be replaced with Coco.
Yes.
So we saw Coco, and we were forced to endure the Frozen short before it. The movie Coco, I'm going to speak very guardedly, but as someone who is a little closer to this culture, that felt more like a movie where the culture, I guess specifically the musical culture of South America, really shone through, as opposed to where Frozen just feels like a fairy tale.
Right.
The Coco felt like a movie that was actually informed by the culture and
absolutely,
and had more I don't want to say thought, but I'm going to say thought put into it. And so mixing that with the Mexico Pavilion I think is perfectly fine, and because Dia de los Muertos is such a large celebration in Mexico, I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Although don't portray it as a huge party, because it really isn't. It's a more solemn event than it is a big party. But anyways, Tyler has brought me the that's a fun Spanish word, alebrijas, which are brightly colored Mexican folk art sculptures of fantastical creatures.
Right, that's what they had a lot of on display.
Yes,
and we saw them making them, and they were all different sizes. There was really small ones, really giant ones,
hand carved, hand painted.
That was cool
impressive.
Because we saw the one person who was making a lot of them. I thought that was really fun.
Yes.
Instead of the Coco or a Three Caballeros ride.
Are you about to say Grim Fandango?
I would love a Grim Fandango ride. a ride through the.
They own it.
They do own it now because it's LucasArts.
It is.
Yes.
So that would be a fun. I mean, obviously, it would be a really dark, like a journey through the land of the dead.
Well,
obviously, it could be with Coco, but something a little bit more akin to the weird creatures that you see, and the fact that as a skeleton you could just walk on the ocean floor because you don't have lungs. All these cool things, and Glottis. Seeing a character like Glottis, who's a demon of speed, that'd be so cool.
Here is
this is where I get to nerd out a minute. But
this is a heck of a deep cut.
Yeah. You can have some probably really neat. You know how in Coco they had the you could see the dead interacting with people, and also when they grabbed the offerings and pulled the essence out of them. That was
you could do some Pepper's Ghost effects.
Exactly. You could do some fun stuff with the visuals of that. I don't remember where I was going with this, except that I don't know if the Land of the Dead is a real thing that is believed in, or if that is something that is borrowed from an ancient culture and has brought in. Out of them, I think Mexico is my favorite overall. Morocco, it goes Mexico, Morocco, and then everything else.
I would just fix the boat together. Ride.
Yeah,
is the thing, or put in an entirely different kind of sort of Day of the Dead kind of ride.
And that's what I was going to say, is just replace the Three Caballeros with Coco theming. It's great. If you feel the need to have an IP in there, Coco fits quite nicely, I think.
Yes, agreed.
And they even have, what I recommend was the what do you call it? The museum. Before you get into the Mexican villa, or I'm going to call it a villa for the sake of simplicity. Before you get in there, there's the display cases that have all the different artifacts.
Well, currently it's Coco themed. It's all about the Day of the Dead and all of that.
Yes,
which is fine. It doesn't. I mean, they'll change it out, but I think it's good that they're playing around with that space still.
I guess the one criticism I have is that we don't really see modern Mexico. We get this real sense, because you look at the buildings, and the buildings look like buildings that were constructed in the 1800s or the turn of the century. and we don't really know what modern Mexico is like. And I guess that can be said for since we've reached the end of the pavilions, we can do a little bit of a retrospective where it's we could see a bit more of the modern version of these cultures and a little more of their history, as opposed to simply a slice of their culture that they try to give us. But maybe that's something that requires a little more depth than a small pavilion at Epcot can provide us with.
Anyway, let's keep moving here. I'm sure they're gonna show up here in the next 15. So
okay, so
about
I think
40 minutes. They say 40 minutes out is what I just got a text.
Then that's enough time for us to wrap up.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the last thing. What used to be the Odyssey restaurant and is now just another part of the festival center.
Yes.
Because what was it during the holidays? It was like a cookie bar. And then when we went for food and wine, it was a bar that just had some Epcot artwork.
Oh yeah, it had
plastered on the
like a
wall.
museum,
it was
theoretically.
Yes, theoretically a museum for
Barely.
the Epcot 35.
Now, taking a look at that sort of blue sky concept art, it doesn't look like it's there anymore.
Oh dear.
I'd very much like for it to be gone because it
Yeah.
takes up a pretty substantial plot of real estate that you could use for, I don't know, maybe that could just be the new Innoventions, or it could be one building part of the new style Innoventions, whatever they're going to make into it.
Right.
But, like, you could, I don't know, a test track restaurant, for example. Like, it could be anything. It's just, it could even be a plot of, well, not really a plot of land for a pavilion, but there's certainly enough room there to do anything else. If it's not going to be a restaurant, then it should be something else, even like an Epcot museum or just a World's Fair museum, some kind of exhibit, I would say, if you're not going to ever make it a proper restaurant again.
It's always felt like Epcot purgatory. It doesn't fit in Future World, and it doesn't really fit in the showcase. Like, it's just this weird thing.
The building design is even so dated. Like,
yes, they've not touched that thing.
It's
now,
still the kind of Innoventions look.
I will say this though. I right now it's the Festival of the Arts Center, and a much smaller. Doesn't need the Wonders of Life Pavilion. But I went and saw a lecture there. I saw an Imagineer talk about audio animatronics there, and it was amazing. And they've been doing those type of things. That's what they do in the festival. But it was a small enough space that it sort of felt intimate. And there were still other things going on in that space. So for me, I was already thinking about this podcast when I was doing it. And I sort of looked around, and it's in rough shape. But my one thought was, you know what? Let's make this the Epcot Museum, as you said. Like let's grab the actual Epcot prototype, the model that is in Tomorrowland when you go through the TTA, and put that there. Put the Epcot model in the Odyssey, really theme everything up, and then have this, every day some new person coming in talking about innovation and the world or whatever, but some sort of theme. It doesn't have to be Disney related, but this idea of like people coming talking about the environment, or people coming and talking about this, right? It's like a forum or a symposium for just continuous ideas, while also sort of being a museum that houses Walt's original vision. I always get so irked by people who are like, oh, Epcot's not what it's supposed to be. Epcot's never been what it's supposed to be ever, as you guys have plainly talked about in previous episodes. So, for me, let that be the dream. If Walt had a very specific vision, which, as you also mentioned, is basically BioShock, let's talk about that. Let's talk about let's have people come in and talk about innovations in communities, things that are changing in communities in general terms, or how robots are picking up people's trash. I don't know. But my main point here is like use that space as sort of a reflecting point that sort of bridges the gap between this idea of technology and this idea of showcasing the world, or things that are going on in the world. I think it could do that as some sort of original Epcot OG concept museum.
That actually sounds like a great idea, and that was something that I thought was actually missing from Epcot in general, was just a sort of place for new ideas. There wasn't. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but as you're saying, yes, I think that might be the best utilization of the space is to make it into, as you said, an Epcot museum and a symposium where people can deliver lectures and things like that, which I think would be really interesting and neat.
You know what's probably going to happen, though? They're going to build a second floor, and they're going to make it a dessert viewing area for illuminations, and then they could charge like $100 a ticket, and then they'll make their money back in 1 week.
Yeah, that's what they'll do, probably. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
We were going to talk a little bit about... we're going to talk a little bit about those empty plots of land, and I'm surprised something like that hasn't already shown up. You know, the top part of the Fantasmic audience had like tables and a dessert area where you could pay extra money for a good viewing area.
Let's talk about countries we'd like to see there.
I want Brazil. I want a Brazilian steakhouse as a restaurant because those are always fun, and that's a dining experience that they don't even have at Disney World right now.
Yeah. Well, they're getting one, right? In China or Japan? One of them's getting a steakhouse. I can't remember.
That would be Japan. Japan is going to open a small like steak lobster kind of restaurant thing just off to the right side of where everything currently is. I'd like a Brazil pavilion. I don't know enough about Brazil's culture to actually be able to come up with an entire pavilion area, but something like Spain as well, like cultures that aren't currently represented. I think Egypt would be so fun.
I think there's a lot you could do with Egypt because of how much of a sort of cradle of civilization it was.
Yeah, I agree.
So many thousands of years ago, and it has so much history there. But that you have to approach it from that angle. That there is a lot of history here that we have to showcase. I don't think there has yet been a Disney film that takes place in Egypt.
No, I don't.
Not to my
think
knowledge.
So.
Aladdin and Jasmine flew over Egypt once.
This is true, and that's why the Sphinx doesn't have its nose.
Yeah,
that classic joke.
My only issue with Brazil, well, I have a couple. One, there's no really, like, I can't really think of what it would be, except it's got to have something to do with soccer.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, the only emblem that can really be used is Christ the Redeemer, which is the big statue.
Yes.
But it's also so, like... It's so ingrained in religion as well.
Yes.
But it's also iconic on its own. And so that's sort of my thing about it, right? And you know, what do you do? I mean, that is the thing that says, Brazil, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, it also comes with connotations, and maybe some people are like, well, I don't know why that's representing. But maybe it isn't overshadowed by that.
Yeah. Sorry, you finish what you were saying.
No, I was just saying, well, you know, maybe it's not overshadowed by that problem, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Okay, and I was going to say, I think at the Mexico Pavilion they also sell crosses, crucifix, not the figure of Christ being crucified, but
sure, of course.
Simple crucifixes that have been painted to be to have that distinct Mexican color palette to them. I think they sell those at the Mexico Pavilion, but that is also another case in which the Christianity is so ingrained in Mexican culture that that's something that you can't really ignore, but also has a little bit of we don't want to get too far into there type thing. I think the statue is one of those things that is just because it is sort of, it's not actually, but it's one of those 8 wonders of the world type thing that you can remove it enough from the context of a religious idol and have it as simply a staple of human ingenuity, architecture, something like that. Similar to the pyramids. The pyramids technically are religious grounds because the ancient Egyptian tombs, but of course the ancient Egyptian religion has long since died out, and so now they're just sort of artifacts. So maybe that could also be the case with the Christ the Redeemer statue, where it sort of transcends the religious connotations that are associated with it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it might for sure. Though, yeah, I could see Disney having thought through that for sure.
I think if they're gonna do like World Showcase 2.0, because we're still in 1.0 basically, there's not a lot of cosmetic changes that have happened to these pavilions over time. And they've only ever added like 2 additional ones from the opening ones. Epcot 2.0 is basically just should be like, hey, we're adding an entire new section to France. We're opening up 2 new pavilions, and we're replacing every movie with a new one. Like, just those kinds of things are just the most basic thing. By using those extra plots of land to open up an expansion of a country, or do something completely new by opening up new countries that aren't available right now.
Yeah.
But also doing something different to, like, change one building's facade at least, or update a restaurant. Just do something to each pavilion so it feels fresh and new for everyone who goes there. The next time we go, I don't know if we're going to spend that much time in the World Showcase, because we already ate everything we wanted to. The only benefit would be going during Food and Wine again to eat new things that are now available. But half of them were in Future World anyways. I think the things we liked most were over in Future World.
Yeah.
And I don't really have a reason to go to every pavilion. I don't have a reason to go watch O Canada again. Maybe I'll go and maybe look in the shop again, but there's no reason for me to revisit those places. I'll definitely go to France again because I want to go on Ratatouille and I want to see the brand new area they opened up. I might go to China to check out the new movie, but there's no reason for me to go a second time, except to a restaurant I already like, but all of them are already, like, super expensive.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it's the little stuff, right? There's no reason that these movies should take 20 years and be around that long. I think randomizing the movies, having multiple movies per country that
could help,
rotate would very much help with that process. But at the same time, at the very least, just, upkeep is in the little things is always important.
Yeah.
My other big, this is the only other one I can really think of that I'm sort of set on, is in Australia.
Yeah, you had mentioned that before.
Yeah. If not here, Animal Kingdom, it would be great. But I think Australia is literally its own continent. So
this is true.
Probably deserves some representation. And my point here is, if they've got the money, then if they want to get a Super Bowl ad, they want to do tourism, right? So get a pavilion. Epcot, go do it. It makes sense. And we could easily, my joke is always, finally I get my Rescuers Down Under dark ride, which I don't really want.
That would be good.
I want a Sydney Opera House.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Recreation, and then I want a live band to do opera. Or I want to see like a 20-minute opera, maybe. That's something that's not really represented as like stage shows and performing art. I mean, obviously during Festival of the Arts is when they have performing arts and Broadway people come in and do performances, but like opera is such a strong representation of a couple different countries.
If I may, there is no... I was shocked at how the UK pavilion didn't have anything about Shakespeare or any of the great English writers,
or a Shakespeare, like a recreation of Shakespeare's theater. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, there was no like Globe Theater type thing happening, which was kind of shocking to me. I was expecting something like that. Maybe because we are from the West, it's something that we're just like, oh, that's just a given, that would be there. But maybe people who aren't more familiar with that culture are just like, oh, this is just a generic overview. Why would I care about the literature that they made for all these white people? That could be a possibility, but I don't know. I was shocked that it was missing from there. I think I'm going to get us to wrap up because I think we're starting to sink. And if we sink too far, then we're not going to be able to keep our legal loophole. Well,
just like walking around the World Showcase, you're tired when you finally get done.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Speaking of which, we have one last thing to talk about. Illuminations, Reflections of Earth.
It's a fireworks show. What more can I say about it?
It's a good show. I think it has a pretty firm representation of all the cultures in the world. I love Jim Cummings' opening bit where it's like, we have gathered here around the fire as so many people have before us. And I'm like, that's cute. And all the flames are outside each World Showcase sort of pavilion, and then they all go out as if we're all gathered around a fire to listen to this story. And it's a pretty firm representation of Earth and all of our cultures put together. The music represents so many different cultures as well. I kind of want an update to it. Like, I want a new soundtrack that has a little bit more world music in it. Like, when I hear world music, I think of, like, drum beats and, like, ambient sort of music. Not specifically any type of orchestra, like an American-themed orchestra, but the theme to Illuminations, I want a new version of that. And as much as I love the Globe, we were standing just behind the refreshment port near Canada Pavilion. We couldn't see the globe at all. Like, for those people who are just coming up to the show at the last minute, they don't get, like, we want to look up in the sky and all get to see fireworks. There's a lot of trees on the berm outside of the sort of walking area. It's very hard to see a lot of the fireworks at that time. But I'd incorporate more water features that sort of shoot out a little bit closer to the shore. That way, the people who are further back, they could still see it. They could still see the fireworks and this water. And obviously, the amount of smoke that comes off of those fireworks, like, it would be a lot better to make it a bit more of a water show. And based on that sort of general concept art they blue-skied for the future of Epcot, it looks like they're going to have a little bit more water fountains. Everyone thinks it's going to be World of Color, but I think World of Color would not fit in Epcot. That'd probably be better for like a Hollywood Studios kind of show, Cinemagique kind of show. But I think Illuminations can have an updated soundtrack.
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Cinema Magic, but that's just me.
Oh, okay.
Or cinnamon magic. I'm not sure. I can't. You know, it's fine. It's nice. The globe spins and things shoot out, and I like how it incorporates the countries around the area. It's cool. Let me give you that. It is a very cool thing to not have any sort of IP attachment or music connected that is in some way. That's nice. You know, I mean, that's good. And I wouldn't want there to be any sort of IP thing connected because it should be about the world, you know. So I think there's always it's always good to have a refresher and to update. So maybe do something like that. But overall, I'm pretty happy with. Maybe some projection mapping would be cool. But beyond that, I'm pretty good with Illuminations.
But before we sink into legal trouble, because then we'll be 5 inches below the water, and that's legally iffy. Nathan.
Yes.
Is there a country you would like to see added to World Showcase?
I think if I had to choose one, I would say Australia. I think it's a whole continent. It deserves a place at the table. There's a lot that can be a lot of history, Aboriginal culture, Sydney Opera House. You know, you could, if you really had to throw in an IP, what I like about it is it's sort of IP incapable because they have Finding Nemo everywhere else. So it's it kind of has to just stand on its own. And I think people just like Australia, right? They already have a booth at Food and Wine, so it's not like they don't have some food concepts that they've thought through there as well. You know, kangaroo burgers or whatever. I don't know, but it would be fun, and I think it would. And the other thing about a lot of these countries, in some ways, the Florida weather sort of determines. You know, it's not like you want to do some super. Norway might be the outlier here, of course, but generally cold countries are hard to sort of represent in the Florida heat, and Australia is perfect for the Florida heat. So, yeah, I think Australia would be great.
Perfect, Tyler.
I'd say Egypt. I think it would be completely different than everything else that's currently there at World Showcase. I think the idea of pyramids and Egyptian culture. Like pharaohs and maybe some kind of ride or dark ride through like a tomb I think that'd be fantastic. I know that Universal already has that covered with the Mummy ride, but I think that'd be great to see. And I've never tried food from Egypt. I don't even know what it's like. So that would be something fascinating. I'd love to speak to people who live in Egypt or who have come from Egypt to represent their World Showcase Pavilion. I think that'd be fantastic. What about you?
I think. And this is going to be a bit of a loop around. I think what they should do is they should replace the African outpost with El Salvador, because then they don't have to change it in size, because El Salvador is already a minuscule country, and you can just add in the numerous things of El Salvador. That's my bit. I was going to say Egypt as well, but then Tyler said it, so I don't have a different country that I'd like to add. This has been Ride Rehab. I'm Tom Kiernan.
I'm Tyler Mann.
And I'm Nathan Hartman.
And we'll see you all next time when we move on to another park. For now, we have to get out of this frightening legal loophole and end the podcast.
Yeah, this is best. Oh, here come the United Nations.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Get out of here! Get it out! Oh my god. Okay, let's go. We got a problem. See you around next time. Thanks for joining us here on this episode, Nathan. Remember to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. We are Ride Rehab, and follow WDWNT.com on Instagram as well for some posts about what we're going to be doing in the future. Thanks a lot. Have a good time. Okay, we got to go back.
Bye.
Bye.